On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick will start things off with a quick take on the Rings of the Power finale and how it lines up with canon. Fear not, though, they'll move into Space Wizard franchise territory soon enough as they take a deep dive into Andor Episode 6, The Eye, which many fans have dubbed a masterclass in Star Wars TV. They'll then talk about how Andor's 3-episode story arc formula will change over the last half of the season, starting with a one-off Episode 7. Tales of the Jedi is a week away, so the dudes will talk about the titles and the writers of the 6 shorts and how long each will be. Of course, the show will end with Question of the Week responses and the latest round of Top 5 Star Wars Fan Artist Features. Punch it, Chewie!
Hey, now everybody, how's it going? Hitting you with the forehead today. I got my hat up like I'm some sort of jerk off. Nick and I were sitting there talking about, as we learned, I think these 3 dudes, or 3 women, we at some point in time in Rings of Power, we thought the shaved, bald-headed blonde was a man, but I don't know if it's a man that has a nice set of boobies. But either way, we're here, we're back. It's Star Wars time. For this week, SWTS 235. We've been humming along for years at this point in time. But we're here. We got Andor to talk about. Obviously, The Eye, Episode 6, seems to be the, at least those Star Wars fans I interact with, the highlight of Andor so far, if not one of the best live-action Star Wars TV drama shows, episodes ever released. So yes, we are here to talk some Andor. But of course, if you've been tuning in to the SWTS over the past, I don't know, what's it been, 7 weeks or 6, 7, 8 weeks, we like to talk a little Tolkien. That's right, a little Rings of Power time. And how could we avoid that this week after the series wrapped with its finale this past Friday? So, like we've been doing for the past few weeks, and this will probably be the last time, because my friend does not like House of the Dragon, so we can't sit there and riff on that, even though that show, I absolutely love it. The drama is at a high level. Last night's episode, while you could argue nothing crazy happened, the whole time it was tense, armpit sweating. You asshole families, I hate the Greens! But alas, Nick is not partaking. So we should be back to full-on Star Wars by next week. Maybe dribble in some pop culture highlights. I do plan to get out and see Black Adam hopefully this week, because why not? It's the big tent-pole DC comic release of the fall. I do enjoy my man Dwayne, so I'm going to go check it out, even though I figure it's probably going to be pretty terrible. So maybe we'll talk a little Black Adam next week, because we will not have Rings to discuss anymore. So Nick,
yep.
You and I, you actually beat me to it. I was at a wedding this past weekend.
Yes,
honestly, I was dreading going to. It was in Philadelphia. We had to drive because I had to drop the kid off at a relative's house, because we seem to be one of the only 21st century families, Nick, that doesn't have built-in babysitters or family that lives a block away that you can just dump your kid off on whenever you want to. So
yeah.
It makes things like a no kid allowed wedding kind of tough for us. But anyways, we figured it out. We drove out to Philly. I was in a horrible mood because I'm just a cranky piece of shit. But we get there Friday night, and I don't know if it was just I was cranky and I needed to let loose, or if I took my Oxy too soon for a long night of walking. But for the first time in years, if not a decade, I went fucking berserk. Like, I got blitzed to the point where I woke up. I may have peed myself a little bit. After that, I vomited all over the place. Woke up Saturday at 8:30, continued to vomit. took a little bite of the pen to try to help that out. Fell back asleep till 11:30. Woke up. All my cousins who I haven't seen in years were like, "Hey, let's go eat." And I'm like, I just wanted to die, man. No. I don't try to get wasted anymore. It's just not something I shoot to do. So I don't know what happened. I really do think I mistimed the oxy and it got the best of me, which is fucking dangerous first and foremost.
Yeah.
But dude, I lost my mind. Everyone saw me Saturday like, man, you weren't feeling any pain. You were having a great time. And I'm looking at some of these pictures and I'm like selfie guy and I never do selfies. I was pulling people around me like, come on, man, let's get in the shot. Yeah. So I blew my party wad Friday night. So Saturday I was zombie Matt, but in the end it was still a great wedding. I love seeing some of my cousins I haven't seen in a long time, all who are much more and widely successful than I am, at least when it comes to entertainment. One is a high up director at Netflix. One does TV and makes documentaries for Netflix. The other that got married is actually a pretty big sports voice out in Philadelphia. So anyways, I destroyed my brain this weekend, and that's why Nick beat me to Rings of Power. He even had to catch up, but he still beat me. But we're here. We're all caught up. The finale came out, and Nick and I had questions. Well, I had questions last week because Nick hadn't seen it this point in time. And I was like, "Listen, man, all I can tell you is the way Episode 7 went. I'm worried about the finale and if they will actually give us any answers, any meat to some of the subplots they've been weaving throughout the season." And after taking the episode in, and don't get me wrong, listen, there's been a lot of canon changes throughout this season, mostly with timeline compression, like severe timeline compression. I'm not talking 10, like House of the Dragon. I'm talking thousands of years. But in the end, like I told Nick, I'm like, listen, man, they gave us 2 big pops. We got the first set of rings that you would expect, and it sets the show up for a second season where at least to me as a Tolkien fan, I feel like, all right, now we're settling in to the actual Rings of Power and soon to be the War of the Rings. So it took a little too long to get there. I still fear that casual fans might not make it through season 2 and might ultimately lead to the demise of the show having an extended run. But as a Tolkien diehard, I can close my eyes to a lot of the canon changes. I mean, the one weird one and Nick, we never talked about this, was Galadriel mentioning her husband, which we know is alive, but for some reason they're pretending he's lost or dead. And
so I'll talk to that in a little bit because I think I may have an idea of what they may be doing with him. But
there's one other, like the other one, the fake drama surrounding the loss of Isildur is just kind of odd at this point. It's like, listen, even if you're a dope, you realize this guy can't be dead. So why are we drawing this out? But before Nick gives his quick take, I really do feel like the way it ended, I'm glad. And we kind of called this a few weeks ago, or at least I did. I'm like, Nick, didn't Hallbrand, the way he was talking to Adar, is like he could potentially be Sauron. I mean, Adar recognized him. No one else did. They seem to have a beef between each other. And sure enough, he did. So they skipped over the whole Anatar, the giver of gifts. Although, Nick, did you smile when Halbrand was working with Celebrimbor and he's like, ooh, it's a gift and I'm giving you a gift? I was like, yeah, at least they got that in there. So I appreciated that, but they sped all that up. But in the end, we kind of got to where we need to be. We got information about the stranger who, based on the dialogue at this point, I mean, he literally says a line that he says to, it's either Merry or Pippin. Verbatim, he says it to Nori. Essentially, hey, just follow your nose and we'll end up in the right spot. I mean, that is a verbatim Gandalf quote. But no one still really knows. He could still be a blue wizard, either Palando or I think, Nick, what was the other guy's name? Alantir or something like that.
It was something with an M. So let me look it up.
Well, I'm talking his Middle Earth name. Like that. Grab that article I sent you. It's Palando and Alandir, right? Or they're both the blue.
Let's see. I got it pulled up now. Let's see.
So
It is Istar. Okay. Istari come. Who are the Istari? Blah, blah, blah. Alatar and
there we go.
Palindo.
Alatar and Palindo. So who the fuck knows? I mean, here's my take. The way he acts and what he says, he's Gandalf. The way he dresses, he's Radagast the Brown.
Yeah.
Where he's going, he's one of the Blue Wizards. So
Exactly.
I don't really know, but considering the time compressions they've already made, and Nick, they have been so liberal, it would not surprise me if in the end the stranger does end up becoming Gandalf, even though he's an age early, many, many, many thousands years early. But like I said, for all intents and purposes, it took a while to get there, but I think Rings of Power Season 1, by the end, gave you some of the answers you wanted to see as a Tolkien fan, and has at least moved the pieces and shaped the map to a recognizable point for Tolkien fans by the time we get to Season 2. So I was a fan of the season, 2 thumbs up. I thought the finale was the best episode out of every single one.
Yeah. I agree with you on all points there. We've talked about the protracted timeline or the condensed timeline a lot in this, because a lot of the times, or in the Second Age and throughout like Tolkien's writing, he tends to write things over long stretches of time. So like technically the events of the Second Age and the events of the show took place over probably about 3,000 years. Just to give you an idea of how long he makes things take, just the siege of Barad-dûr at the end of the war in the Second Age, which we will eventually get to in the show, that siege alone took 9 years. So, and if you know what a siege is, it's just you sitting outside,
right, lobbing shit, trebuchets and big pieces of concrete.
Yeah. So that was supposed to last 9 years. So if we did it in Tolkien terms, you would have basically every cast member that's not an elf dead before the show is over, and that obviously brings up its own problems. I think what they did at the end of season 1, I agree with you. I think it was fantastic. I think it set us up for a really good season 2. I also will say that they did a fantastic job of essentially masking who Sauron was. I mean, there was, if you like read
the cold open on this episode, Nick, was great to really kind of fool those that aren't as intelligent as you and myself.
Yeah. I mean, if you looked at the through line kind of to this whole season, it was basically, who is Sauron? Which one of these characters is Sauron? Is it the stranger? Is it is it this white-haired person? Was it Halbrand? And then at the end, we find out it was. And there were just some excellent moments in there. You mentioned one, forging the rings with Celebrimbor, him saying, this is a gift, kind of alluding to the original Tolkien writings of Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, being the one,
Hey,
Sauron.
Nick, real quick, when it was, because that to me is probably the biggest canon change, is that they just were like, fuck Anatar, he's Halbrand now. Like that, completely new. I'm not going to get that upset about it, because he at least said, I'm giving you a gift, or in some phrasing, it was imparted to me as a dork that, all right, he's at least doing the whole gift giving thing,
some sort of homage.
But now, did Sauron never had a hand in crafting the elf rings, or was it that his magic would not work on the elf rings? He could never influence them, because the show here makes it clear that he had no hand in physically forging the rings, which is why he can't control the elves. Is that also in the book?
That is canon for the Elven rings.
But he did forge the other rings with Celebrimbor before he left.
That's the big one that I was going to bring up.
Right, okay.
Technically, all of the rings except the one ring was forged by Celebrimbor, which it's going to be interesting to see if that actually happens, or if that's a canon change. The Elven rings were not influenced, like Sauron did not pour his hate into those.
He gave Celebrimbor the knowledge to craft them and all that. Yeah. Like that was similar. I don't think the books made a big deal on they got to figure out how to extend the life of Mithril and make these new alloys. That's show only. But in the book, Sauron definitely was the giver of gifts, Anatar, the one that taught Celebrimbor how to make them a certain way to infuse magical power, so on and so forth.
You are right though that there was a set of rings that he did influence, but did not actually influence the
rings of men
rings.
and the dwarves. And we said this before. The dwarves' rings didn't work, but it made them greedier.
Yes,
the rings really only served their true purpose on men.
On men, yeah. So, I am interested to see how that goes down if they just do a canon change there as well, and then
he just makes them all Mount Doom. He's like, hey, fuck it.
Forge the rest of the rings in Mount Doom, because now, I mean, this was always an issue that I had even with the Tolkien writings, was that in canon, Sauron as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, goes to Lindon. And then Lyndon looks at him at the front door, and they're like, "You're Sauron. We know you're Sauron. Get the fuck out of here."
Real quick, because I know you brought this up, and you're not wrong, but I don't think they knew he was Sauron. They just knew he was a shady fuck, and they didn't want to deal with him.
Okay, yeah,
I believe that's the official way it went down. They could tell that he was off, but they didn't know he was the Dark Lord, which is why he was allowed to go to Eregion and essentially get in bed with Celebrimbor and the Forgers.
Yeah. It was always weird to me, though, how that went down. I think you're right. They may not have expressly known he was Sauron.
They just knew he was bad news. Yeah. But your point holds. It's like, did these elves not talk to each other? Like, hey, there's this dude coming around, Anatar, the giver of gifts. Just watch out for him. He seems kind of slimy.
Yeah. Especially in the show, they made it clear that Celebrimbor and Gil-galad were in pretty constant, in communication, a good deal. So it would have strained credibility in the show if you would have had that interaction happen where he goes to Lindon and then he goes to Eregion and then Celebrimbor's like, oh yeah, no problem. So I don't have an issue with them cutting that.
No, but they did show that Halbrand, aka Sauron, had an immediate effect on Celebrimbor. It was within the first few spoken words to him in his forge, Celebrimbor was already under his spell. I'll listen to you. I'll do whatever the fuck you want. Sounds good, pal. Let's start forging.
And then one of my other favorite parts was when Galadriel figures out he's Sauron. Okay. They're talking on the bank of the river, and if you remember to when in Lord of the Rings when they show up in Lorien and then Frodo offers the ring to Galadriel, she does her ghosty thing.
Oh yeah, she freaks the fuck out.
The words that she says there are the exact words that Halbrand says to her on the bank of the river. He says, if you are to ally with me, you will become more powerful. The exact line she says when Frodo offers the ring, you'll have a queen, more powerful than the foundations of the earth. Those, when he said that,
that's
I was
a great scene. I'm getting
fun.
Chills from it now because you're right. Peter Jackson did some crazy lighting thing on her. She's like, and then she's like, oh my god, thank God I was able to turn that down again.
So I love that scene.
This is all new canon too. Sauron never asked to marry Galadriel, make her his queen, and all this shit. This is for the show, but he still kind of gets to where he needs to be, and she gets to where she needs to be wearing a ring. Did you notice that? The ring that's supposed to go to Gil-galad went right to Elrond. I mean, Elrond eventually gets it, but Gil-galad got it first.
Yeah.
And Celebrimbor's, I forget who's his ends up with, but
I think Celebrimbor's ends up with some random person, honestly. I don't like.
Oh, Gandalf. Remember, Gandalf ends up with one of the elven rings. Yes. Yeah, there we go.
Because I don't know if it went directly to or this may be another addition. There is a ring that Celebrimbor forged that was untouched by Sauron, but it had it was forged in the same way as the Rings of Power that somebody else got. There was one. Ring
maybe there might have been one more in between Celebrimbor and Gandalf, but I believe Celebrimbor's ring eventually ends up with Gandalf. Because they all have the power of the not senses of what the fuck is it? Earth, wind, fire. That shit. Yeah. What's that stuff called?
The unseen world.
No, there's a word for that, forces.
Elements. Elements.
I'm forces, fucking senses, smell and sight. Yeah. I'm an idiot, but there you go.
But yeah, I mean, I overall was very happy with it. To quickly address what you brought up about Celeborn, which is Galadriel's husband. I saw it theorized out there before that what they may be doing with Celeborn is actually what happened to Glorfindel in like Tolkien lore, where Glorfindel, like first age elf, gets killed in the first age during the War of Wrath with Morgoth against Morgoth, but then he gets brought back to life like almost immediately. And that's how he lives throughout the second
I mean,
and
she
third
didn't
ages.
technically say he's dead. She just like, I haven't seen him in a few thousand years or something.
So maybe he's not dead. Maybe he's like floating around out there, and he will come in, because we know the same way that we know that Isildur's not dead. We know that Celeborn's not dead because Celeborn is in the movies. He's the one standing next to Galadriel in Lorien. So, but overall, canon changes that were made, I think, were made intelligently and to accommodate a television show that is using a condensed timeline.
Yeah, no, it like you said, it's just as much as early on I kind of bitched a little bit about the canon. Over time, is like, all right, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, if you know the source material, you kind of understand it is not. It's not made for TV. It's not really even made for books. I'm not fucking kidding. Like, read the Silmarillion. It will be unlike any fantasy novel you have ever read. It doesn't read like a traditional book. There's no clear arc. There's multiple plots. There's thousands of years covered. There's ages of time covered. I mean, you go from the creation of everything all the way up to the third age, right before you get into the shit about the War of the Rings with exactly. the battle at what was the battle that Isildur cuts his fucking finger off? What's that called?
Oh, that's the
Battle of something. Whatever. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. All right.
It was the final battle in front of the Black Gates.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
In the second age. Obviously, it's not the third age because that's what we see in the movies. But yeah, it's the final battle. I can't remember the name of the goddamn.
It's not a big. Hey, real quick, because Bat brought it up. I mean, obviously the three ladies, the whatever they were of Sauron, they're clearly not ring wraiths, but they seemed wraith-like after he blasted them with the spell. So are they a wraith-esque type being then, you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I took it as soon as the Istari kind of looked into the unseen world and he saw their essence and kind of dispersed it.
Yeah.
First thing that I thought is that clearly they were followers of Morgoth, and then, now they're looking for the lieutenant. They're looking for Sauron.
No, I mean, they're like cult members. I mean, they were all in, and they got some kick-ass armor. It's not like they're orcs. They truly are like a... Were they humans? Because look, they don't have elf ears, at least not this one. So no, it was interesting. I did like them in the end. That was a nice little kind of double take.
And it was.
You never really knew what the fuck they were doing. You knew they seemed evil, but maybe they weren't. And then they get there, and I don't know. It was all. I really liked how they handled the stranger thing.
Yeah. No. I mean, I do think I agree with you that it was the show itself was definitely took its time getting where it got, but I am very happy with where season one is. It
has set up season 2 to be a banger because all the slow moving shit is out of the way. I mean, Numenorian is ready for its quasi civil war. You saw that. Yep. You saw Al-Farazan has essentially usurped Miriel and all that jazz, which is going to lead to that place getting fucked up. You've seen it in the Palantir vision.
I can't wait to see that because I want to see if they do what is in canon, where you have the War of Elves and Men, or Elves and
Sauron's ass,
capture him, send them there, and then you get to see. Well, in canon, you get to see Numenor essentially turn to Morgoth worship. You start to see all of these temples to Morgoth pop up, and then they try to make war on Valinor.
He starts as their prisoner, but because of his silver tongue, he eventually becomes an advisor, and as Nick says, gets them to start a whole new religion and then go attack the gods. And that's why The great line of men is all but extinct by the time we get to the Third Age, and it's just Aragorn is the only one left of that bloodline because Sauron gets his hooks in. And well, Nick, that was another great line. I mean, Halbrand's like, listen, motherfucker, I didn't want to come here. I wanted to stay in Numenor, and that's exactly where he wants to be. Like
exactly.
It's if you read the history, it is like he almost wanted to be captured. I mean, after he loses again to the elves and the forces of men, it's like he does want to be captured because then he works his time over hundreds of years on Numenor and gets the great line of men essentially wiped out because he's like, all right, that's another fucking piece off the board. I just have to deal with elves now. The men in Middle Earth, I have tricked and turned into ring race, so they're all fucking pointless. And here we go. And that's how he does get power again. Because Nick is correct. He hasn't even gotten his ass kicked yet. He's going to get his ass kicked by the elves when they realize that he's trying to manipulate them through the rings. And they go and kick his ass again after many, many years. And he disappears again, ends up on Numenor as a prisoner, then becomes an advisor, then tricks them. And then he makes it back even stronger, back to Middle Earth. And that's when he really starts to build shit up for the final battle between elf and men when they cut off the ring. So, all right.
And then look, that is this full show. Like that little 3-minute, 2-minute long explanation that Matt just gave you.
I hope.
That is all of the Second Age.
Yeah, just literally. Listen, man, like I said, I hope the casuals keep it going. Sir Dork, he's like, hey, I'm a casual. I thoroughly enjoyed it. That's good news. But I do believe this show to have a long lifespan will need the casuals to support it. I don't know. I mean, Bezos, he's filthy rich. Maybe he'll just keep doing it for himself as a pet project and the troll Elon. But, sometimes shows like this get whacked if it's only the diehards and the scholars like ourselves. So, I mean,
Taylor really enjoyed it. She's a casual. She didn't even really like the movies, but she's fully bought into the show. Glad to hear that Sir Dork is enjoying it because we need influential people like him to step up to the
weird. It's podium. Like, and a lot of people, and honestly, I think Bat brought this up last week. This is a great TV year for people like all of us that listen to this show and that talk on this show. I mean, if you're a geek and you like fantasy or sci-fi, I mean, think about the programming we've had since August, really. I mean, you got Andor, you got the Star Wars side cover, you had the House of the Dragons, you had Rings of Power, sprinkling in some Cobra Kai. You got these, if you're in the true crime stuff, you got this. I have to recommend this, but the Dahmer thing on Netflix, before you watch the drama, watch the 3-part true crime doc with the actual confession tapes. Because then you really get a sense of this man. Then you watch the drama and kind of see it all play out. That's all great. So it's a good time to be alive if you're a couch potato. I hope shows like this keep going because I know there's a lot of hubbub out there. House of Dragons greater than ROP or ROP greater than House of Dragons. Who gives a fuck? Let's just be happy we're getting content like this and support it, and hopefully we get more seasons. We know we're getting season 2 of each one of those shows, but if you're like me, you want these things to tell the full fucking story. And both these shows are based on a book, so we know there is a full story to tell. So hopefully that remains the case for Rings of Power, and at least for me, House of the Dragon. But good stuff. All right, so if you've been sitting on it, now's the time to watch it. You've got all eight episodes to peel through. They're all, at least an hour long, which allowed, I think, for a lot of the character development. And of course, the money was spent wisely on just photography and the special effects. So it's a good product. Okay, it's Andor time, my friends, and I'm excited, just as excited to talk about Andor Episode 6, The Eye, which kind of like the Rings of Power finale was kick ass. I mean, it was like last night's or Sunday's House of the Dragon. It was packed with tension and drama, and you were kind of feeling it. And you're on your edge of your seat, waiting for big characters to die or not die, or betrayals, or was someone actually going to come through with their ideals. So it was quality stuff. But before we get there, I just want to remind you that if you want to do the live stream, you want to join in with the Sir Dorks and the Bats out there, we do it every Tuesday, 2:30 p. East on YouTube, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. And if you are new here listening, make sure to give a sub to the channel, like the live stream, and tell a friend. We also do short form content in between the shows. And last week, if you didn't check, we had our Andor review and Easter egg breakdown. But there was a fun recap. At least Rippick Tan told me I do funny comic book shorts. I do them in 60 seconds or less. I sound like the Micro Machine Man. So if you want to get in the know on current Star Wars comic book runs, don't forget to check out youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. Plus, you would have learned from this latest Star Wars comic that Hera told Luke that he reminded her of Kanan. Very cool fan moment.
That is very cool.
You also saw where Luke got the idea to wear black. And finally, we have some new canon around the second Death Star and how the Rebel Alliance first found out about it. It was Crimson Dawn and not Many Boffins. So good stuff there. Check it out. Plus, we got a little preview of the Crosshair Bad Batch 1/6 scale Hot Toys figure. YouTube.com/Star Wars Time Show. All right, Nick, the eye, my friend. I'm assuming you took it in this morning, so it's probably fresh on the brain. I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and let you kick off the review with your thoughts of the eye.
Yeah, I think this is the most different episode of Star Wars TV that we've ever had, in my opinion. It's one that truly leaned on all of Tony's strengths as like a writer and director, because that's what he kind of built his career off of, was spy thrillers and shows and movies that took this approach to storytelling, which was, character-based storytelling, big set pieces, and then, kind of the fallout that comes from that. And I think we see that in full effect here in the eye. I think that it accomplished everything that we thought it would for an episode 6, for like a final in a 3-episode arc. I really love the character interactions, especially towards the end between Cassian and the rest of the crew on Aldhani after the mission had been completed. One of our pieces of speculation definitely paid off, but in kind of in a different way than we thought it would. I
didn't say, I'm never one to shy away from fucking tooting our own horn, but we hit some of the big beats, but we definitely fucked up the betrayal to a point and some of the deaths. But I think we still did pretty good. Our track record's still pretty high. Yeah,
like Nemec not dead, injured, but we definitely thought something was going to happen.
Yeah, but he dies in the end, so we win. We still got that one. But Cinta lives, so that we pretty much said everyone's dead but Vel. You said everyone's dead. I said everyone but Vel, so we both kind of fucked up. But it was still a 75% win.
Yeah, Tamron down, Gorn down, Nemec down, Skeen down in a different way than we expected.
Loved it though,
but still down. Yeah. But yeah, Cinta and Vel still alive. I mean, it was a very well executed 3-arc finale. I love how the tension was palpable from the opening moments of the episode.
The music's great. I forget the composer, but he fucking kills it with that. Just that it's almost like a constant drum beat, like doom, 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 doom. Mm-hmm. It's almost mimicking your heart as you're watching this shit. Like, oh,
yeah. I mean, that was fantastic. I do have I don't know. This may not be canon anymore, but I do have one little nitpicky thing, and this was from previous. This may be from previous canon, but it was stated that that TIE fighters can't fly in atmosphere because they don't have shields, and if they were to fly in atmosphere at high rates of speed, they would just fall apart because they don't have any sort of deflector shields to stop the wind shear on their very not aerodynamic builds.
Yeah.
That was again.
I do remember them. They don't have shields, that's for sure, and they also don't have a hyperdrive. At least not until the sequel trilogy. Then everything has fucking hyperdrive, and you can track hyperdrive, all that fun stuff. But yeah, I mean, I guess they did kind of suffer once they got into some chunky atmosphere. So they paid the price, but yeah, I get you what you're saying.
Yeah, but other than that, man, I really did enjoy kind of the full episode. The ending bits were really nice because not only I didn't think that we would get the response or the beginning of the response until the next episode. I thought that we would kind of end here, with the crew. Like, I thought that we would end here with the crew, and then the next episode we would roll in and start to see, like, then we would see Luthen, then we would see Mothma, and then we would see the Imperial response. But having those moments with those characters at the end, and you can see the different reactions, like Luthen's pure elation, like going into his back room, laughing and truly enjoying it, seeing the response that the few Senate members that are, in the chambers during Mon Mothma's speech. Yeah. Like just absolutely freaking out. And then the total and complete lockdown that the ISB is under now, like, to figure out, like, you're not leaving this room until we figure it out.
Yeah, he's like, listen, we got to come up with our reaction plans. I mean, it's going to be bad. Like, Aldhani is going to get fucked up. But I think that was and I'm with you. I'm glad that they checked in on the Coruscant factions, because I think it showed, like, the Empire has now realized that they're not as great and grand and secure as they expected, and that these rebel activities they've been hearing about, they probably should start considering them.
Taking seriously. Yeah. It's like,
so Miro, she should have been like, I fucking told you so, bitches, and like threw her fucking, her book down, her iPad, whatever she carries around. Yeah, so I'm with you, dude. I also believe it's one of the best live action Star Wars TV episodes ever produced, but I think it was a product of its setup. So to those of you out there that the filler crowd, that's why there is no such thing as fucking filler. Because if you didn't have episode 5, episode 6 does not hit as hard as it did. Okay, can we just get that out of the way? Thank you. But outside of that, I just love the nonstop tension. I love the portrayal of the Empire and just how arrogant and unempathetic they are. You don't really get a lot of that. You got some of it in the Clone Wars, and even that wasn't even the Empire, but you would get more of that type of shit. This is really the first time you're just seeing the Empire and how they would talk about these planets they've essentially conquered and the people they've conquered, and to hear the way they talk about them, it's just like, I want to join the fucking Rebel Alliance now. Like, if I was Gorn, it would have been hard not to pull out my blaster and just go pop pop to fucking Fatso and the Engineer. Yeah. So I love that Tony is giving us these scenes and showing us the hubris of the Empire leadership, especially. And I also really appreciated how they involve the Donnie people and this ritual and this pilgrimage, and how that contrasted to what the Empire is doing to them. And you could see, I mean, just the line, he's like, oh yeah, there used to be 15,000, now there's 60. I mean, think about that. The Empire has essentially beaten the culture out of this planet, or just killed them off for their own purposes. So I appreciate, obviously, his much darker tone for Star Wars. The way he decided to shoot this show is still paying off in spades. All the practical locations are just fucking phenomenal. The way the eye looked has to be one of the most visually pleasing special effects I've ever seen in any of Star Wars. And it was very cool. And then when you lump it in with just the sound of the storm of the eye, it was just, it just, everything was great about this episode. This was a true 10 out of 10. It was self-contained, but it also resolved the 4, 5, and 6 trilogy. And as Nick alluded to, the ending was perfect. Both the double cross with the Rebel faction, and then the peek in on Coruscant. So it's just like, filler people, come on. You just got to come to grips with, you're not into Star Wars beyond the pew-pews and the woo-woos. And that's okay. Just be like, listen, I don't have much of a brain. I just like seeing flashing lights in action. That would be much better than, this bullshit, Disney's ruined it, Andor's boring, it's filler, it's slow. Okay, you just sound stupid at that point in time, all right? You heard it from me. I'm right, you're wrong, there's no filler in Star Wars. If there is, you probably have mush for brains, okay? All right. I can't wait to talk about episode 7, because I don't know if you saw the post, but the formula's changing. Gilroy,
he said that
Gilroy tricked us, so we're going to have to be careful on our 7 predictions, because as he calls it, it's very interesting and is not going to be a part of a trilogy arc. But we'll get there. Anyways, all right. So there you go. Those are the reviews. If you want a little bit deeper one from me, make sure to check out our episode 6 video on YouTube. This one actually crested 1,000. Still nothing, but not bad. So keep it up, my friends. You know why I did that? There was 80 likes, and I think it was either Sir Dork or what's his name? Dan Sparks, Rebel Jawa, I believe, started a comment train. And that's people. At the end of every show, when I'm begging and pleading and saying, hey, we're not going to do subscriptions or Patreon, that's what I'm looking for. I mean, sometimes on a video, if you start a comment, you can start a comment train, which means the algo is going to go, oh, cool. All right, I'll show it to more meatbags. And then they start clicking, they start liking. So thank you to all of you. Okay, so as we're on the review segment here for Andor episode 6, let's go over some of the top moments. Nick, I kind of already talked about this one, but the whole just listening to J-Hold and the engineer, specifically J-Hold, talk about how the Empire's manipulated the Donnies since they've essentially taken over the planet, and it just showcased how truly awful the Empire is, and anyone that joined it and made it to these higher ranks were undoubtedly a slime bag. And Nick, I think it was a great choice to show a bit of J-Hold's family life because it just upheld the idea that he is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's blaming his wife for packing his bag wrong because he got fat and his belt doesn't fit. He's essentially calling his son a weak, sick piece of shit.
He's always sick.
Suck it up, pussy type of stuff. Yeah. So I just, all those moments with the Empire when you know they were still on their high horse, just brilliant stuff because you don't get this in Star Wars. You don't. The Empire, they're the bad guys with the guns and the cool looking armor and vehicles. You rarely get insights into the way they think. And now that we see it, it's like, well, shit, how did the rebellion not start year one? These people are fucking vomits.
Yeah.
Absolute vomits. So.
And I like that it's like, especially J-Holt, like he is middle management. And middle management is always like the worst.
Yeah, because they're not highly respected from the bottom. They're not respected from the top, and they're trying to improve their station at all times.
Exactly. So like middle management is always just the biggest pieces of shit because they're stepping on everybody that they can to try to get their way up, and then so everybody below them hates them. Everybody above them is trying to push them back down.
Yeah, laughs at them or thinks they're a joke.
Yeah. Thinks they're a piece of shit. So like the portrayal of that character, I think was fantastic, and it mirrors, or it falls in line with expectation of what you would see in the real world for somebody in this position. You know, like so I think that he was a very well done character.
No, he was,
especially for somebody.
He really was. I mean, J-Hold is, to me, he is the epitome of, like Nick said, middle management Imperial officer. It was just a great scene. I mean, that whole opening scene, even though it might have felt slow to some of you, if you just sit there and you listen to the dialogue, and if you just look at the guy that played Gorn, he acted that scene brilliantly. Like, you could tell he was seething underneath the surface, but all we could see was he was still doing his yes man thing. So I don't know. I really appreciated that, the discussion on the Donnies, because it showed how truly terrible the Empire was, and anyone involved at any capacity, especially in the officer ranks, all deserve to die. Okay, I'll just leave it there.
It's like they're like the. I don't want to say they're like the SS.
Well, sure they are,
but because the SS. Well, the only reason I didn't want to say that is because the SS was like a very specialized unit. So I think somebody like J-Hold's not necessarily like the SS.
But he's no different than a Nazi commander. I mean, same thing. Yes, I mean, he's still like a Nazi where deep down you would like to think that they know this is wrong, but they still are like, hey, I don't care. It's going to get me more power. But yeah, the German people made the same decisions that the galaxy made during the fall of the Republic.
Yeah. And you know, I do hope that within this series, because I think that this series is the one that may give us some interaction like this. But I do hope that we get interaction with the foot soldiers of the Empire to really get their perspective on things, because that was one thing. Like, if we're going to use World War II and the Nazis as kind of like an analogous type of deal, you had German soldiers in World War II who were fighting because they didn't know any different. Like, they were fighting for their country, and they were doing what
propaganda is a powerful thing. I mean, look what's happening to this country. I mean, we're sitting there poking fun at Germany. In 10 years, they could be saying the same thing about the United States.
Very true.
Because we're going down the same fucking path where you got a large faction of individuals that believe misinformation because some leaders have chosen to run their politics that way. They've now realized that
platform.
They're like, listen, this guy has proven we can be absolute scumbags, and they're going to vote for us no matter what because they like the bullshit we're selling, even though it's not true. They dig it. That's how democracies fall. That's what happened to Germany. That's what happened to the Republic. And it could very well happen here. Not that we're getting into politics, but you can definitely draw through lines from Star Wars to the United States at this point in time. We're in our Clone Wars right now.
Yeah.
All right. So next top moment beyond the shitty Empire. You know, I asked Nick this question last week. So what were the women getting into? And sure as shit, they got the wet work. They were the Tom Cruises. They were the James Bonds. I love
literally rappelling down just like Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Underwater, you know, they're doing like Jedi shit. You had to love those wetsuits too, man. You got like their scuba suits even have little fucking bills on it just in case there's sun underneath the water. I don't know, but I like the look of it all, and I do like that they gave the girls the super secret Mission Impossible stuff, which made sense. It's not like you could wheel female soldiers down there. But I do like they gave them that task, but it also allowed for that scene where you saw for the first time that Vel is not a confident leader, or she was hesitating on the job, and then
sitting there,
finally
it was that tense moment. Are we a go?
Exactly.
Do we go?
She was definitely hesitating a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. This could be completely throwaway for most of you, but one of my favorite moments in this episode, no shit, was watching the TIE pilot fully board his TIE. We've never seen it before. I think you've seen it bits and pieces in animation, but you literally see the dude from the rafters climb down, pop open the hatch, get into the ball, and start juicing up the systems like we've seen from the Rebel Alliance. Specifically, it reminded me of the prep for the Battle of Yavin, where they're calling all the pilots to the ships. You see them loading in, the cockpits are going down, they're turning on all their switches. I fucking loved it. It was great. Just because we don't get the Empire perspective, at least that in depth or that personal at all, really, because they're the bad guys. So I like that Tony's team invested in those types of shots, and it was all practical too. You gotta love TIE fighters. I mean, they're purely death machines. I mean, there's nothing in there. Like, if you compare the cockpit of a TIE to an X-wing, I mean, it's like he's got a place for a cot in the back because there's nothing else. There's no controls but the fucking joystick and a few knobs on it. That's it. You look at the X-Wings, they're literally sitting in a console. I mean, they are sitting in a console. But it just looked badass, and they gave some great inside shots while the TIEs were on that dogfight run. It was just really good cinematography overall in episode 6. Which takes me into the whole freighter escape. Yeah. I mean, obviously leading up to that was great, but when they actually punch out and you see it's like a fucking bus flying through the air, and right at the same time the eye is going in full force, and just the visuals you're getting, kind of cutting between the Donnies and their celebration, their chanting, and then the oranges and the blues and yellows and greens are coming in, the TIEs are coming, Iggy's going, climb and dive, and shit's blowing up. It was a very exciting culmination of the heist. Both, you could feel it, but the visuals were also extremely pleasing to the eye. I mean, like this shot there, those ties, and you got smoke and smoke trails, but the sky's purple, it's red, it's orange. It's just good looking shit there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, the big one, and I want to get your take on what you really think happened here, because for some reason, a lot of people aren't clear on Skeen's betrayal. We called this last week. I mean, we were like, listen, in some form or fashion, Skeen's going to do something shady. It's either going to be like one of those, oh, hey, Cassian, psych moves. You know, we've seen those before in heist jobs where you think the shitbag is actually going to save the good guy, but at the last minute they do a psych. Or we thought he was going to die and really screw up the mission. But we got probably the best of any option with Skeen, where you truly got to see his shitty character, because it was a betrayal. What he was speaking to Cassian was a full-on betrayal. It was a planned betrayal. And the fact that Cassian really doesn't even give it two thoughts, doesn't even want to discuss the plan, just gets up and ices the fucker. It was great. It was great for the character of Skeen, just to pay off on his shittiness. But it was also awesome for Cassian to see, like, listen, this guy's no bullshit. He may not be a rebel yet, but he definitely has a value system. And he was not willing to betray these people, even though he's really only known them for 2 or 3 days and was there as a mercenary. So, I think it said a lot for everyone involved in the heist, but more so for Cassian. So, Nick, did you ever feel like this was another test for Cassian, or did you fully believe Skeen was a pile of shit and had this plan from the get-go?
I do feel like Skeen. Okay, so let me think of a way to put this. I don't think that he had this planned from the beginning. I'll put it that way, because if he had it planned from the beginning, it wouldn't have come up so casually. Like it seemed like if his plan was go through with it, get the cash, and then I'm gonna find a way to get out on my own.
Okay,
but I do think that he was just generally a trash guy.
All right,
and he was just waiting for an opening.
There is a wing of the fandom that believes Cassian was wrong and that Skeen was just testing his loyalty again. I think that's complete horseshit, because he literally lied to the team about his backstory. So, and that's why I also think that he has, from the get-go, probably premeditated fucking the team over in some capacity, because he was with Vel, Tamarin, Nemec, Cinta for we know, months. And he lied to them because Vel was the one, I believe in episode 5's like, all right, Skeen, tell him your story. So Skeen had been lying to them about this fake brother and why he wanted to join the rebels.
Revenge.
So I mean, Skeen's been shady from the get-go, so this was not a test. I could buy into Nick's theory a bit, where maybe he saw this as an opportunity, but I'm going with this was premeditated from day one, because if you go back to when they're on the freighter, he's the one going, we got to get to the doctor. We have a doctor set up. Like, he knew there was going to be, if they needed to, a side planet to go to before the final destination. And it seemed like he lucked out with Nemec getting hurt that he could have redirected, because Vel was like, you know what? Fuck it. Sacrifice is sacrifice. We need to get to our destination. But Skeen was the one that was pushing for the stop. So I think it was all premeditated.
I will say that about him lying about the brother and everything else, if he came into this group the same way that Cassian did, because we don't know how the core group came together at all. From what we could gather, though, it seems like Luthen was out there like cherry picking people. And he was like, look, I'm going to put, like, you're going to go do this mission. And just, so to me, everybody's backstory could have been a lie. I don't think that Skeen lying about his brother was necessarily an indication of him being a shady dude, because Cassian's lying this whole time too. His name's not fucking Clem. He's not from, everything that he's told these people, which is very minimal about him personally, is fake. So I do feel like Skeen lying isn't necessarily like an indicator of whether he was bad or not. I think what ended up happening was he saw an opportunity. He already knew that Cassian was at best like just doing this for the money, and then he was ready to get out. And I think that's why he felt like there was an opening there with Cassian. He's like, you've already told us what your deal is. You're here for the money, then you're out. How about this? You want money? Here's real money, 40 million
All right,
credits.
I could buy, because, I mean, it's not like the other people. I mean, they really didn't even have a pilot. So maybe he started thinking once Cassian showed up and he's like, I'm going to be the pilot. Maybe that's when he started thinking like, all right, I could potentially leverage this situation. But I still think Skeen was a shitbag and really was pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, even more than Cassian, because at least Cassian eventually came somewhat clean. Like, listen, fucks,
just be like, look,
I'm a merc. I'm here. I'm getting fucking paid. I mean, he didn't say my name's Cassian, but who cares if you're lying about your name? He at least finally did tell some truth and gave him his exact motivation for being there, where Skeen always just kept that lie going. So it was not a test at all, but I will buy into Nick's theory that maybe Skeen, once he saw where things were going and realized that, hey, I've got this other guy here that isn't, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over the Rebel Alliance. Maybe I can convince him that, hey, you and me, we're kind of the same. And it was the line that gets him killed. And he's like, listen, you and I are the same. We'll fucking climb over anyone to make our life. And that's where Cassian's like, no, we're not, you piece of shit. Pop!
Yeah. I think, the big thing was everybody else before Cassian got there seemed bought into the cause.
Yeah.
Like they were all like, Nemec especially, Nemec had written his whole manifesto that Vel gives to Cassian at the end. You knew that Tamarin was bought in just from the stories that were told there. I mean, Gorn was an active Imperial, lieutenant, essentially a spy. Yeah, he's a lieutenant spy within the Imperial superstructure. So that those people are like, we're in it for the rebellion. But then, like, Skeen was probably always not really.
He's in it for himself.
Didn't care that much.
It for himself.
Yeah. And then he sees Cassian comes in.
In it for himself.
And Cassian. Yeah, in it for himself, readily admits, he's like, I don't give a shit about your rebellion at all. Like, I'm doing this for me, merc, money. Once this is done, I'm out. And then that's where he saw his idea. Like, okay, I'm more like this guy than these people. Let's see if we can have a mutually beneficial.
I'll give you that.
I'll
give you that. But it was not a test. There's no fucking way he was testing Cassian's loyal again. I mean, he really wanted to steal that money. There's no doubt about it. If he was really
testing him, do you think that he would have pushed him to the point where he's going to fucking... I mean, I will say that him roasting Skeen right there was maybe a little bit... a little jumpy,
but it falls in line with the man we've known since Rogue One. Like, it's true. We see it. Like, because I'll never forget that moment in Rogue One the first time I saw it, where I saw a rebel just ice an innocent person. Yeah, after he got what he needed. I'm like, holy shit. So I dig. I mean, it fits the guy. We saw him do it in episode 1. I mean, he's not one to talk. He's not one to sit around and when people are essentially challenging him, he's not one to fuck around. He's going to pull that side piece out from Clem and fucking blast people. So I dig it, man. I like the way he rolls. And then another moment from all like the scenes on this moon planet, wherever the fuck they were. And I think we alluded to this before, but Nemec is a very important character in all of this. In fact, he could be one of the most important characters for the Rebel Alliance as a whole when everything's all said and done. Because that manifesto, that wasn't just a casual passing of it to Cassian. That is a meaningful moment. Vel giving it to him and saying, Nemec wanted you to have this. And at this point in time, Cassian is not ready to become the rebel we know he is. But that manifesto is going to lead him there. In fact, I think it might play a role in the next episode in getting us back into some flashbacks, but more on that in a little bit. That's the tease for our episode 7 prediction. But that manifesto, that's not just a one-off moment. That thing is going to mean something to Cassian. I think it's going to be the thing that ultimately turns him into the guy we meet in Rogue One. And I also think it's ultimately going to be a beacon of hope for the galaxy. I mean, I could see this thing become, I hate to say it, but because, there is negative connotations around it. It will be something like a Mein Kampf or, Lenin's, I forget Lenin's book, but it's a book that people are going to read, and it is going to motivate them to break down or break their chains and beat down this oppressive system that they've been under for, at this point, well over a decade. So don't sleep on the manifesto and Nemec's contribution to the Rebel Alliance. I honestly think he will go down, and I don't know if we'll ever see it. Maybe Tony will pay off in season 2, but he will go down as almost like an apostle-like figure for the Rebel Alliance.
I mean, right now the rebellion doesn't have, for lack of a better word, a platform. Like they're just like, Empire bad, stop Empire, do whatever you can to do it. I mean, and granted,
no,
that's probably all the platform that you need. But for somebody like Nemec to literally sit down and write, I mean, like you said, a Mein Kampf, Lenin's Communist Manifesto, to sit down and write out the tenets of what this rebellion is about, not just on a surface level, but on a deeper level, like down to the core tenets and principles of what this rebellion stands for.
It's like the Bible. It's the
Empire
Rebels'
bad.
Bible, essentially. I mean, it gives them. I mean, a lot of it is, it's just stream of thought, but it will also, like books like the Bible, it gives them guidance. It gives them hope. It can be inspiring. You know what I mean? So this manifesto is going to be huge. And like I said, once we get into our episode 7 discussion, I'll kind of give my thoughts on how it might lead to some flashbacks or eventually moving Cassian closer to really wanting and believing in the rebel movement, because clearly he still does not. I mean, I did. Nick, did you have a little sliver of hope, even after he blasts Skeen, that he would have came in and be like, "Hey, this motherfucker's trying to take you out. We need to get out of here," and like him and Vel would have bonded, and he would have got into the rebels earlier? I didn't quite see him getting so pissed off. Like, all right, I just fucking killed that guy because he's a piece of shit. I want my money. I'm going to buy your ship forearms, and I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm done. Job's done. Contract complete.
I did have a moment where when he was walking in, I was like, oh, he's going to say like, this is going to be the turn moment where he's going to say like, hey, this guy was trying to betray you this whole time, but he's just not ready yet. He's not at that point. And
well, he was probably caught off guard. He's like, well, fuck, Val and them, they've been living with this guy, and they didn't even see he was a fucking scuzzbag. So how can I like fully throw in with them if they're missing people like this?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, man, I really thought 6 would have been okay. He did something good. They would have bonded over the thing, but no, he's still
no bonding.
He's a loner, man. He's like, fuck you. All you guys are the same. The partisans, the seps, whatever. Have fun. Keep rebelling.
I mean, if you see it from his perspective, he got involved in a job where,
I mean, he essentially got kidnapped and placed on a job.
Yeah.
Let's be real. I mean, he didn't. He needed Luthen to get the fuck out of Ferrix, but it wasn't his choice.
Yeah, and like then he gets like thrown into this. He sees more than half of the people that are on this squad get fucking taken out for like essentially for nothing that's gonna benefit him. Like he gets his credits from Luthen, but like he's like, I'm not doing this shit again. I almost got fucking wasted.
Right.
Because one of
you guys is trying to double cross us all. So like, how do I really want to hang out with you? You can't even sniff out that you got a wolf in sheep's clothing here. Okay, and then final top moments are kind of where Nick started things with. I really enjoyed the reactions on Coruscant. I'm glad they spent that 3 minutes or whatever to kind of bookend this action-packed and very tense episode. And the obviously the staff meeting scene was the best, because anyone that's worked in corporate America, you've probably been in one of those moments, especially if you're in IT. I remember those like, well, shit, fucking plant's down. You ain't going anywhere until you figure it out. It was one of those moments, but homeboy Qyburn's finally like, all right, I want everyone's essentially, what do you call them? It's like planetary reaction plans or something like that, which is a nice way of saying, are we going to go fucking glass Aldhani or what? You know what I mean?
Yes.
like
how much are we only going to blow up half of this planet?
Yeah.
How many people within our own team are we going to ice because they fucked up? Like,
yeah, or what other planets and what other sectors should we just fuck with just to remind the galaxy that, hey, we're still here. We understand that they just got us. They got over on us big time, the biggest ever. They stole our whole fucking payroll for a sector. But listen, we're still the Empire, and this is what we do. So I feel like this isn't just going to be an Aldhani reaction. It could be an entire sector reaction where every planet in the sector gets the fucking boot put on its throat.
Yeah, definitely.
So you were right. It was so much heist, but kind of getting to see the fallout of the heist and how it quickly spread like wildfire across the galaxy. That was awesome. And just all the different reactions. ISB squeezing their butt cheeks. The Senate going nuts, like completely disengaged from Mothma's speech. And if you know, she was talking about Gorman and trying to get aid there and how they've been fucked. But they're all like, damn it. The galaxy's under attack. The Empire's under attack. And as Nick said, our man, expertly played once again by Stellan, walks in the back and just throws on that smile of, I fucking did it. They fucking did it. The party has started. This is it. Like as we said last week, you have to understand, this was their coming out. All the other little shit, that's why the Empire ignored it, because everyone but Miro were just like, fuck it, who cares? It's just small potatoes. Yeah, it's like little insurgencies. Who gives a shit? We can go in there and we'll fuck them up and we'll stop. This is the, hey, Galaxy, Empire, those that want to be insurgents, we are here, and this is the level of shit we're pulling off right now. This is what we can accomplish right now. So everyone is on notice, both those that may want to join rebels and those that want to put them down. And he knew all this. But because you'd have to imagine he's been planning this for potentially years, the level of relief that lifted off of him and just knowing like, holy shit, we did it. We did it with a ragtag group of people that were all strangers probably before they met. There is some power to this rebel movement. So I love that. Love the end. All right. Well, Nick, that takes us over to our Easter egg portion of the breakdown. And once again, I'm loving the minimal Easter eggs because it makes my life easier on a Wednesday. I can just do a short for the eggs. They're literally so few and far between. I can do nice little 60-second or less breakdowns. But we did get some interesting ones, plus a really great one, if you remember, probably the most iconic moment from Rogue One. All right, so starting things off, Echo 1. All right, we all know Echo is an infamous call sign amongst the rebels. It was widely used on Hoth. Yeah, you had Echo Base, Echo 3, Echo 2. So yeah, that clearly was not just for fun. I kind of like the little twist that Tamarin was a stormtrooper. Because honestly, if you think about it in the Star Wars timeline, at least from what I can remember, FN 2187 was the first person to ever kind of break out and go to the good side. I know, what's his name? Nadine. He was an Imperial officer that made it over to the rebels, but I don't think there was ever a known stormtrooper that decided, you know what, I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to fucking join the rebels.
I think it was because in the beginning of the, well, I guess you could say, interesting. We'll have to see how things progress through Bad Batch, but in the beginning, they were all clones, obviously. They transitioned over to conscripts and people who like actively signed up.
Right, who wanted to
So a lot of people were like joining because they wanted to join. But then, FN 2187 Finn, in the sequel trilogy, they were all mind controlled.
You're right. And I don't think stormtroopers, at least OT troopers, were brainwashed, right?
No.
They
were
just,
as far as we know.
Correct.
At least as far as we know.
Correct. So yeah, I mean, Finn's obviously was a bigger deal because his brain was scrambled, and that's why at least most of you are like, oh, he must have the Force, and I never really picked up on that. But whatever. I can admit I'm wrong every once in a while. I don't know. I still saw it as a nod to other Star Wars where you've seen parts of the Imperial machine defect and realize that they fucked up. But it just, I don't know. I thought of our boy Boyega for some reason. I'm sure there's people out there like, oh, it's because he's a black guy. No, it just same stories. I don't give a shit what they look like. But it is a neat little kind of twist at the end. Like, oh, this guy's a fucking stormtrooper. You know, just like Nick was saying. I mean, no one really knew anyone's story in Vel's group or the full story. It seemed like things would just keep leaking out. Our boy Skeen, love him or hate him, but at one point, I believe Tamarim threw him a good old DLT-19 heavy blaster rifle. So I know you gun freaks out there always like when you get a little a gun Easter egg or reference in Star Wars, even if it is still based off of. I'm pretty sure the DLT-19 is just a World War II machine gun.
I was going to say it's based off of a World War II
but for some reason that's okay, but AK-47s are not. Okay,
yeah,
whatever. Like at this point, I'm just like whatever. Who cares? I don't give a shit. Next one, and you just have to do it because you have to. We got the klaxon, the iconic sounding Imperial klaxon over at the air base there when they were scrambling the ties. Everyone always likes to hear that boo, 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 because some shit's going down for the Empire. And then this was the big one, and I don't know how many people picked up on this when you saw the scene. But when Nemec is essentially juiced up on whatever to keep himself alive after getting his lower half smashed,
spike,
and he's commanding Cassian to climb. It is a direct reference to Rogue One when KTSO is sacrificing himself for Cassian and Jyn to get one more chance to transmit the signal. And Cassian is literally, K2 is literally going, climb, Cassian, climb! So that was not by mistake. I know Tony doesn't get into this shit, but his brother fucking snuck it in. I promise you.
But also it's his own movie, right?
Yeah.
Like he can draw from his own movie.
I guess you're right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That almost seems too cynical.
He made that, so it's not like fan fiction.
Exactly.
It's not like, any of that other stuff. It's not animation. My God, animation. Can't even think about that.
But
Tony did.
It was a cool reference, and it was very similar. I mean, he's essentially being told climb to save his life, and it is, even though it's two different situations, they definitely mirrored each other. And I included the KTSO scene in our breakdown on StarWarsTime.net if you do not believe me. And once I fired it up, I'm like, I don't want to watch this. This makes me sad. It really is fucking sad to watch a robot just get fucking blasted to death as he is sacrificing himself for his buddy.
I think that at the time when that movie came out, we both agreed that was probably the most heart-wrenching moment in the entire movie.
Oh, easily. That is a more sad death than any death in the final battle, the Scarif battle. Even the Jyn and Cassian death to me is almost beautiful. We knew they're all gonna fucking die, but the fact that they died in an embrace of each other, kind of recognizing that they did, have feelings at the end, and they just burn up to essentially save the galaxy. It was a beautiful death, where K2SO's was an emotional death. It really felt like a friend was dying or the family pet. It was rough. Yeah. Those are the eggs there, and like we said, deaths were corn. Come on! Yeah, get some fucking death metal going. Gorn went first, then Tamarin, then Nemec, then Skeen. By Cassian's hand, but we figured he'd be dying anyways. So Nick, before we move on, what do we do with Cinta at this point? Do we just leave it as a plot hole, or do we somehow, is there going to be follow up on her remaining on Donnie or on Aldhani?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the one other notable thing that was left out of this episode, and it makes sense, but was Cyril. Like, after so much focus on Cyril in the previous episode, we did kind of, by necessity, leave him alone.
I mean, this episode pretty much ignored all the other subplots until the very end. You got that, you got that sprinkling of Coruscanti stuff.
Yeah. So, and maybe we can start to transition a little bit over into our talk about what potentially episode 7 could be about. But yes, I mean, there's a huge hole here with Cinta still being on Aldhani. We know that the ISB and the entire Imperial machine is going to be coming down
Oh, of
on
course.
Aldhani
I mean,
hard.
Aldhani is could very well they may just kill everyone. Like you keep hearing them talking about that. I don't know, they call it like the entertainment district or the cultural district. That's essentially where they moved all of the locals and forced them into cities and towns. But you'd see them just coming through and fucking murdering people left and right, because they're gonna want to figure out how this happened. Like, who was on the inside? Who gave him the intel? Blah 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 blah. So, and Cinta is going to be mixed up in that shit. I mean, I think the last time we see her, she's walking out in that Imperial officer's uniform still. But how's she going to get off planet? You know, the planet's already locked down at this point.
On lockdown.
How's anyone going to get to the planet? So, I don't think they're just going to leave it open, because it would be a fairly large hole, and she is connected to Vel. They're lovers. So.
I mean, she has information as well. Like, she knows the entire details of this fucking plan that just went down. You have the entire Imperial superstructure that's now going to be sending on Aldhani, scraping, combing the desert to take from fucking Spaceballs to try to figure out what the fuck happened here.
I could honestly see it, Nick, where we probably don't get this resolved in 7, and it might not be resolved until the end, but I could almost see her getting captured and caught, and one thing leads to another, and they decide, like, because you said of her knowledge, that we need to get her, almost like a Death Star rescue. Maybe they come in and get her out. Who knows? But they can't. I don't feel they can leave Cinta just floating out there. She's too big of a liability.
Yeah, like, plot-wise, I definitely agree. Do I think that there is going to be a rescue mission to save her? Almost assuredly not. Like,
I know.
The way that Luthen is running this ship, I wouldn't be surprised if these fuckers had cyanide capsules in their teeth.
Yeah.
Like old school fucking Nazis and shit would. Or like any spy. You have to have, if you're captured, you die. You die with the information.
Okay.
You don't give it up.
Well, then I could see that happening too, because I think she is prepared more than anyone. I mean, she seemed more prepared than even Vel, and Vel was the leader. Yeah. I mean, Cinta was the one like, yo, let's fucking go, bitch. Like, say it. Say the words. Do it. Yeah. It's go time. But they do have to resolve Cinta. So, all right, man, let's get on. Here's how we'll do this. First and foremost, let us drop some knowledge on you about how the second half of the season is going to play out, and then we'll speculate on 7. That's how we're going to do this. So, up until now, it's been very clear that Tony and his team has broken down the episodes into 3 episode story arcs. We had 1 through 3. They told a complete story from start to finish. We had 4 through 6. They told a complete story from start to finish, while also, keeping the overarching plot stuff moving. Okay, so these little trilogy blocks, as we'll call them, they tell their own contained story while also contributing to the overarching plot. Agreed? Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of thought that's how things were going to play out over the second half, because that's how Tony sold it. He's like, listen, we're going to take the formula we used on season 1, which was giving a director a 3-episode block to kind of tell a story. We're going to do that in season 2, but now those trilogy blocks are going to cover a year's worth of time, tell a story, and then we'll move on. So I just figured that's how this season's going to play out, and by episode 7, we'd be in the midst of our 3rd trilogy block, so 7, 8, 9. Well, apparently we were wrong, and Gilroy was speaking a little bit out of his butthole here. So on the Empire Magazine podcast, he revealed that episode 7 is a very interesting one. That's all he would say. But he went on to say that episodes 8, 9, and 10 form another trilogy arc, and then 11 and 12 combined are going to be the finale story. So we do have a story process change for the final half of Andor. So, Nick,
we essentially have 2 trilogies and then a finale with a little piece, episode 7 in the middle.
Yeah, we got 1 more trilogy to go, but it sounds like episode 7, tomorrow's episode, or it's already out. I don't want to call it a standalone, but it's definitely going to be unique in terms of it's not going to be really setting up a 3-episode story. So with that knowledge in tow, why is this one, in quotes, very interesting, do you think? What do you think it's going to tell us then?
I think that this one may have a a very focused view on the post Aldani cleanup. And I almost like, it would not surprise me if the next episode has very little Cassian in it. Let me put it that way.
Okay. Interesting.
Where you are heavily focused on ISB, Imperials, figuring out on Aldani what's going on. Then you also have your side stories that we were talking about. We were worrying about them kind of getting lost. We also have your side stories coming in with Cyril coming back into the mix, and then with Cinta still on Aldani. I think it's going to be a very contained episode, is the best way that I'll put it. And the containment will be full focus on post-mortem of Aldani from the Imperial perspective.
Okay.
You'll have Miro, or almost for sure, like, if this is how it goes down, Cyril is going to find out about what happens. He is going to try to get in touch with Miro to say, like, you need me. You need to put me in the field so I can help you with this. Or like something, like he's going to want to get involved because he's going to find out about this heist. He's going to make a connection to Cassian for sure, try to weasel his way in. You also have the outstanding story, like we just mentioned, with Cinta still on Aldani, and the Imperial presence is going to be increased there. So I think that we may get a very contained episode of like those particular characters, and then a little bit of Cassian sprinkled in. But right now we know that Cassian is in like a transitionary period. Like, he's finished with this mission. He doesn't seem interested even in the slightest bit to get back in touch with Luthen or to continue working with these rebellion people. So we may like have some touch points with him, just trying to figure out what he's going to do next. But I do think that if we are going to have an episode that doesn't just pick up and start off on the next trilogy arc, it would be super interesting to spend a lot of time with the Imperials in this episode.
All right. Well, I don't want to say a completely different take, but I definitely have different elements. So here we go. Like you, I do feel like 7 has to touch on some of the fallout from Aldhani. It'd be weird to just take a week off from that, because that was such a huge event in the galaxy. All right, huge. Okay, we saw what was happening on Coruscant, and all the rich people were literally shitting themselves.
Yeah.
So I agree that they have to give us something there, even if it's a quick, like, we go to Aldhani and you see in space. Oh, you know what? Tones is the one always bringing this up. I think you're going to get an Imperial naval blockade of the planet. And that's why, everyone's been like, what about when Cinta looks up and sees the Star Destroyer? There you go. That's where that's going to come in. But Nick, I honestly think this very interesting thing, and the fact that this is it's not a standalone, but it's not a part of a trilogy arc. I think this could be perfect time to revisit Cassian's past, right? Like, we could get some of that payoff we've been wondering. Like, are we going to learn anything more about his fucking sister and the Canary shit and the separatists who were Republic officers? This is a time, as you said, where it would make sense to revisit that, because Cassian, he's done what he said he would do. He's technically free of Luthen. He's free of any contract. He even gave back the Blue Kyber. So he is truly, again, on his own, on the run. Now, where I could see the tie into maybe getting some flashbacks is through the manifesto. He could open it up, read some of it. Maybe he reads something about family or bonds or taking care of those who have taken care of you. And he could start thinking again about his sister and how he's kind of had to give up on that mission now that he's on the run himself. On the other hand, and you said this earlier, our boy Cyril didn't get any screen time in episode 6. So I think he definitely comes back into focus prominently in episode 7. So my different take from Nick is, I do think Cassian is going to get some screen time, but it's going to be used to flesh out more of the past and get him thinking towards the future. I could see 7 being the episode where he takes some time to get his fucking head screwed on straight. He still might have to fuck up again to learn, like, being on the run and doing knick-knacky jobs here or there isn't the lifestyle to honor his past. But joining the Rebel Alliance in full, in earnest, that's going to be how he's going to honor what happened to him as a kid and potentially what may be happening to Marva or Bix or people he left on Ferrix. And then, like I said, Serial will be a major focus, so I'm with you on that, and hopefully this is where him and Miro at least learn of each other. And then the check-in on Aldhani, you have to. You can't just ignore that shit. So the big difference there is I do think Cassian will be a prominent part of 7, in quotes, the very interesting episode. Yeah.
So I do, I do like that angle too. Like,
soul searching. That's all I probably had to say. So Cassian will be soul searching, and that is a vehicle to allow for additional flashbacks or learning more about his past and why he may be the way he is, or why he's looking for a sister, so on and so forth.
I think that's a good call. Actually, like having the manifesto play a bit more of a role.
It's this series back to tank. Right?
Yeah.
The Book of Boba Fett, we use the Bacta to do the blah, blah, blah. The manifesto could very well be that. Because, like I said, that manifesto is very important to everything Star Wars now, at least from the Rebel Alliance's perspective. But when Tony says it's very interesting. And the other thing I'll note, I believe the dude directing this one is also going to be the guy that directs the two episode finale. So he's still got his 3-episode block. It's just split up now between this very interesting, in quotes, episode, and then he'll get 11 and 12 to close it out. So by the end of 7, we should be at a place where we can move into the next trilogy arc, which would be 8, 9, and 10, which I think, Nick, is probably going to be those scenes we saw from the trailer where Cassian is in that prison. Probably on purpose, but he's in those jumpsuits, and we've speculated this prison could be just a bunch of scientists and engineers blindly working on knick-knacky stuff for the Death Star. So I do think the 8, 9, and 10 trilogy could focus on that, where 11 and 12 is hopefully where Cassian starts to come around to it all and seals himself as a
true rebellion member.
That's right. A true rebel hero, something like that.
Yeah. So I am interested to see where this next one goes, because it's for him to call out like, hey, this is going to be very interesting, when that Tony thinks that everything that he writes is very interesting. It has to be super interesting to him to be able to.
It's also it's breaking the flow he's established over 6 episodes too. So it is unique. If anything, it is going to be different. This one, I do not envision anyone from the filler crowd saying it was filler, because if it's very interesting, it should somewhat be self-contained. Shit's going to happen. Shit's going to happen to the point where it's going to kick us into... Think of this episode, Nick. It's essentially going to have the 3-episode arc feel, but it's only going to be 1 episode where you're going to have a beginning, middle, and end. And the end is going to get us ready to be primed for the beginning, middle, end of 8, 9, 10. There you go, people.
Yeah. So I think that's a solid call. The only thing that I will say is I almost expect Cassian to like not crack that manifesto until like right before the season ends. Okay. But I could definitely be off on that, like I could definitely be, but I feel like he just got it, like what, Vel gave it to him and he's like
forced it upon him. Yeah. I mean, it's not like he really wanted it, but they made a point, Nick, didn't they, to really bond Nemec and Cassian. Now, it's not like they were best friends by the end, but they clearly talked the most over 4, 5, and 6. I mean, Nemec really kind of bought into Cassian and who he was, and Cassian was also reassuring Nemec when Nemec was nervous. They had some sort of friendship already going. But yeah, you could be right. Maybe the manifesto isn't involved in potential flashback narratives, but I do think it is going to be one of the drivers of him finally making the decision in his mind, which he knows he needs to make. He can't live this life can't always be on the run and just scraping by and trying to survive. There's more to it, as Nemec has been trying to tell him, and Luthen has been trying to tell him, like, listen, dude, you are born for this fucking stuff. You are meant to rebel. I mean, your whole life has been fucked by people stepping on you. Like, this is you. You need to fight for those who can't. So,
I definitely agree with that. That, like, that is going to be the drive. Like, best way I could put it is like the driver for him to get there. I think that the manifesto is going to be the driver. It's just like I'm trying to decide, like, when is the best time for him to actually, like, crack it, or like when is that gonna happen? So good stuff. It was it was a good week of TV. You had Andor episode 6, The Eye, and then you led into the Rings of Power finale. Just, hey, like I said, it's a good time to be alive if you're a couch potato and you like geeky shit. You can't argue with me on that. All right, so we're actually doing really good time today, Nick. We might have some time to do Matt Mando here in a little bit. But moving on, we got some updates on Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, which, if you haven't been looking at your calendar, is already going to drop next Wednesday. And if you're asking, yes, I am starting to already form my ulcers about next Wednesday, because I know I'm going to have an Andor episode to cover, and what we'll find out from this topic, damn near 80 minutes of Tales of the Jedi to consider. But we did, like I said, we got some new information for Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, which drops next Wednesday in full, 10/26 on Disney+. There's going to be 6 episodes released in total, which is not new. But we did learn that Dave Filoni himself wrote 5 of them. He didn't write all 6. So Dave wrote episodes titled Life and Death, Justice, The Sith Lord, that's an interesting one, Practice Makes Perfect, and Coda. So Nick, the other episode is written by what I'm calling the Murrays. So there's Charles Murray and Alan Murray, and they are writing Choices. So those are the title of the episodes. The Sith Lord, you'd have to think, is potentially related to the Count, because you remember that it's 3 stories for Ahsoka, I believe, and 3 stories for Count Dooku. Yeah, so I mean, Dooku potentially, like, Sith Lord, like the first time that he meets Sidious, maybe, or like the first time that like I don't know if it's his fall.
Well, I think we're going to see it at least, or he says something shady, because in the trailer we see him fighting Yaddle, just like he fought Yoda. Like they're not just having a friendly Jedi duel. I mean, she's like flopping around doing her acrobatics with her lightsaber out. I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe they could be tricking us, and the Sith Lord is that Inquisitor type of thing we see in one of the Ahsoka episodes, which is probably going to be in the future, or at least set after the Clone Wars. But no, I'm excited for Tales of the Jedi. I think it's going to be excellent. Apparently, people got screeners already, and they're allowed to talk about them, and everyone's fairly high on it. It's just like, listen, hey, it's great animated Star Wars, as animated Star Wars has been. It is a Dave baby, so you know it's going to be done right. Although, Nick, I know you don't fuck around on social media, but this just, again, shows you how fucking fickle and quickly how's this? Fickle, and you literally have no long-term memory if you're a Star Wars fan, because I shit you not, my friend. People are already making memes essentially making fun of Dave Filoni's Star Wars when compared to Tony Gilroy's Star Wars.
Are you just like...
Not kidding. Not fucking kidding. I saw a new one today. It's the shot of Andor from episode 2 where the rock music comes in, and he's walking through that salvage yard, and there's nothing. They're like, Tony Gilroy Star Wars, and then they showed the same image, but they cropped in like Ahsoka, Boba Fett, a bunch of Easter eggs, like lore stuff that you expect from Dave Filoni. Like, that's a bad thing, but apparently now Dave Filoni also sucks to the wing of Star Wars fans that like nothing more than to bitch about Star Wars.
just like the ultimate recency bias. Like
there you go. That I don't even know.
thing.
I don't even know if that's real, but that sounds right. Like that actually sounds like some sort of something you'd hear from a shrink. That's exactly what it is.
Like if you've ever here's the way I'll put it. If you've ever listened to like the Joe Rogan podcast, you know, like the Joe Rogan podcast, like whoever's on Joe Rogan's podcast, he essentially agrees with.
Yeah, he doesn't challenge anyone, and that's why I think Joe Rogan is a dangerous piece of shit, because he lets on anyone say whatever they want, and most of the time, Nick,
like,
you're right, he agrees. It's like, yeah, that probably is a good idea, fucking killing babies.
That makes sense.
So whatever.
So it's like whatever is in front of Joe Rogan's face is what Joe Rogan agrees with at that moment in time, and like that's kind of what's happening in Star Wars now. It's like whatever is in front of their face at the moment is like, oh my God, this is the best Star Wars ever. Like, you know, it's like that's kind of what's happening. It's like Tony Gilroy's Star Wars is in front of me now, so that means that Dave Filoni's Star Wars is bad.
I was shocked. I was shocked. I mean, joke or not, I'm just like, really? This is it? Like you all have proven yourselves. You just love to hate stuff or just to be angry at Star Wars. I mean, 6 months ago, year ago, Dave Filoni is Jesus to these people.
Yeah.
I mean, they're making the Jesus memes or the Simba meme where they're holding them up, the circle of life. Now, Dave Filoni is a putz because he infuses too much lore and references and Easter eggs into his Star Wars. It's like, you fucking cunts. You're a bunch of salty cunts. You're whatever the recency fuck Nick said. That's what, you're right. You all have that, whatever Nick said.
Recency bias.
There you go. Jerk offs. I mean, jerk offs. Like, why are you people even sharing this meme? I mean, to me, that's fucking sacrilegious, right? Give me a break. I could care less because I know there are sensitive people that listen to this show. Share whatever meme you want. It's fine. I just think it's funny that we've now made it to the point where Dave Filoni is also bad for Star Wars. It's like, come on. And then the last thing on Last of the Jedi, my friend, so you can plan your how much time you need to take out of your day. So here we go. Lengths. In total, you're looking around 80 minutes, but episode 1, 17, episode 2, 14 minutes, episode 3, 13 minutes, episode 4, 15 minutes, episode 5, a 10-bagger, and then episode 6 will be 14. Okay, so these all come out next Wednesday, 10/26. They'll drop all at once. And the way I'm kind of working through things in my head and just the way my life is built, I may not get to the Last of the Jedi stuff until later in Wednesday, and that's just going to be okay. Andor clearly is the kind of the hot topic right now. Although that means that Dave is going to like drop some sort of bombshell revelation in Tales of Jedi. I just know it. I know he's going to put something in there that's going to be like, see, that happened to then, and that's why Ahsoka's like this, or that's why Dooku's like that, and it's like the next big fucking trend in Star Wars videos, but who gives a shit? No one's going to watch anyways. So keep an eye out. It's going to be a busy Star Wars Wednesday next week. I agree with Kingdom of Weird in the live stream chat. They could have at least dropped Tales of the Jedi on a Friday. No fucking shit. Come on, Disney, give us a break. We only want one Star Wars program to consume a day, not two. Okay. Yeah, Nick, like I said, let's do a little Matt Mando. If you got the,
let's do a little Matt Mando.
If you got the cards handy, while you're getting them, I'll kind of set it up. Every once in a while, when we got some time on the cast, we do the Matt Mando game, which stems from a card game Nick was given. I believe you can buy it on Amazon. It's got different tiers of questions. It has the super duper challenging ones, and it has the easier ones. And I, of course, always go super duper. Nick can give me multiple choice if I ask for a helpline, but I lose points. So the goal here is to knock off all 5 questions without asking for the multiple choice.
This is true. Everything that Matt said is correct. I have the questions ready.
See, Bat's already fucking with my head. Tails will be bigger than Andor. I know he's right. I know. I'm telling you, Dave's going to put something in Tails next week that is going to blow up like the Star Wars nerddom, which is who I create for. All right. Sorry, Nick. Go ahead. Let's do it. It's Matt Mando. It's Matt Mando time. Is he going to lose and freak out? We'll just have to play. All right.
All right. So question 1. I feel like you're gonna nail this one right off the bat. Seems like an easier one. What color are Dark Troopers' eyes?
Okay, you said Dark Troopers, not Death Troopers. So Dark Troopers have red eyes.
Correct.
What are red?
What is red eye? Yes.
Yeah, we should do it in Jeopardy somehow. What are red?
What are red? That is correct. So that is a total of 2 points for Matt. What are the colorings of an incinerator stormtrooper? A lot of color.
Okay, I got this one. The incinerator guy, he's the one that walked in and Grogu was like, "You shall not pass!" So he was wearing his traditional white, but with red striping.
Correct.
Thank you.
Right, white with red stripes. All right. Next question says 4 out of 4 so far in terms of points for Matt. What does Kuiil ask Cara Dune to conceal? I can give you the.
I think I got her tattoo.
Yes, her rebel tattoo. 3 for 3.
Oh,
6
Cara, we
points.
miss you.
All right. This one's super easy. I can't even believe that.
And this is on the hard ones?
2-point.
Okay.
Yeah, these are the 2-point questions. What does Mando freeze his bounties in for safe delivery?
Oh, the freezer? Carbonite, come on.
Yes.
Same thing Lucen
Carbonite
uses
is-
to freeze bullwhips from other franchises.
Very true. Carbonite, correct.
Killed it.
Last one here. What signet does the Mandalorian get on his right pauldron? Again,
The Mudhorn.
quite easy. The Mudhorn.
Get some!
Correct.
Eat it! I'm the best!
10 points
All
out
right,
of
I needed
10.
that because the last time we played it, I had my worst outing
Yeah.
to date. So thank you.
Yeah, I think you had like one wrong and you had like one that you needed to get the.
Send me some
response.
trophies. Do what you got to do. Praise
Correct.
be me. Speaking of praise being, the wedding was at a Catholic church. Holy shit, dude. Talk about... That's been a long time since I've been in one of those houses, and my goodness, it's no different. I mean, people that aren't Catholic, they looked at me like, wasn't his sermon kind of like
Kinda.
depressing and angry? I'm like, no, that's Catholicism. Like, everything is bad. Like, if you don't you don't love God and admit your sins, everything's bad. Because he really was like, marriage is tough. You got to sacrifice death. And it's like, holy shit. Like, this is some fucking dark age stuff. But that's a Catholic mass for you.
That's some Catholics get like super into like the doom and the death.
Oh yeah,
and
that's the Catholicism I was raised at for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing it helped me on. It was all religion exists for, at least in my mind, but it's in reality is to ensure those are too dumb to figure out the golden rule. Like, don't treat people the way you want to be treated.
Just don't be an asshole.
They needed to create like, no, if you fuck up, you're literally going to get cooked in hell and stuff like that. That's why that stuff exists. But I will admit, I mean, it did put the fear of God in me. I always felt bad when I jerked off as a little kid. I thought I was going to go to hell just for masturbating or swearing or even thinking thoughts. Were you that bad, Nick? Where if you just thought something bad, I used to go like, oh fuck, God just heard it. I'm dead. He's going to fucking kill me, man. Like, I'm fucking
At
screwed.
a certain point in my life, I definitely did.
Okay.
I definitely had that. I mean, obviously, I think we've both now grown beyond that.
Yeah. And like I said, there are some takeaways from my Catholic upbringing. I'm like, it did keep me on the straight and narrow for the most part, because I was always worried like he was hearing me and I was going to get struck by fucking lightning. And even like when I broke my leg in 8th grade, I had a big fight with my mom, and then I went sled riding and immediately snapped my leg so bad it turned sideways, and I was in a wheelchair for 6 months. And I literally said, God did that to me to punish me for being a shithead to my mom. And I still believe it to this day, even though I don't really believe in gods. But that shit was strong. I'm just glad these days I can jerk off with zero guilt. You know what I mean? I can do it whenever it feels good. I'm like, hey, this is natural. I am not going to burn in hell for this.
animals do it.
Yeah.
Masturbation is a part of the animal kingdom, a natural part of life, as Yoda would say.
Oh, good. I love talking about jerking off. Wait, I forget where this comes from. It might have been She-Hulk. By the way, the She-Hulk finale was fucking great. That show is so bonkers.
Dude, I fucking loved it.
That team of writers deserves an award just for being so fucking off the wall with that finale. My God. I forget where I was going. Who cares? She-Hulk was good. All right.
Kevin
Yeah,
bot.
it was just like they're just straight making fun of fucking Feige. I mean, she literally crawls out of the Disney Plus screen. It's like, what? Yeah. What is going on here? At some point, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Taylor loved that. She's like, wait, did it like close by accident?
No.
And then I was like, I think this is a part of it. And then she like punches through the She-Hulk thing and like looks around.
I mean, that was that's beyond fourth wall breaking. I don't even know what you call that. I mean, that's like fourth wall 4D. But I completely dug the way they wrote that show. Like, it was so wildly unique. It was all fun. But I did have a point, and the point wasn't talking about She-Hulk finale, so I guess we're moving on to the fan segment here. I must be searching for toys because I got a lot of Entertainment Earth ads up on the site today, but worry not. We're at the fan segment of the Star Wars Time Show. We do it every week, unlike other Star Wars fan podcasts. If you want to get involved, you don't have to pay us. We don't paywall any content. We want to interact with you all. So the first way to do that is through our question of the week, which these days I've been throwing up on a Monday night based on some feedback, but I honestly think we get better juice on the Tuesday morning for some reason. So who knows? Point being, question of the week will go up on our Instagram account at Star Wars Time Show. So check it out. It's going to be in the stories, and it's also going to be in our profile grid. Okay. And you just got to look at the prompt. Leave a story comment or just a comment on the post. Nick will go through on Tuesdays and curate them, and then we will read them and hopefully have a good laugh based on the level of grammar that is provided. We also sometimes discuss the comment and if the commenter is stupid or not. So if you want to get involved in something like that, at Star Wars Time Show Monday evening or throughout the day Tuesday before the show goes live, you can leave your responses. All right. This week's question, it's another easy one, as we will rely on for the next 6 weeks.
Few weeks. While
how'd I do this? What was your favorite or least favorite part from Andor episode 60I? So I didn't fuck up my grammar this week. So Nick, who do we get? What say the fans here?
The fans say, first one, Rippick __tan. He's always in the comments, and he's in the story replies for the question of the week, as should all of you. He says it was just so fucking good. Every single thing about it was just so fucking good. I don't have a specific answer.
There you go. I mean, Nick and I, we got a little more specific, but in the end, we probably could have just hit record and said Andor episode 6 was just so fucking good. Every single thing about it was just so fucking good. The end. So you're not wrong, Rippick, and thank you for being one of the few that promote our content. And I can see up there in our DMs at Star Wars Time Show, awesome and hilarious recap of Star Wars comic number 28. So thank you, Rippick. Okay, now we'll get into the post comments.
Post replies. Yes. So first up comes from High Ground Collectibles. I believe that High Ground left a couple of comments, but I chose his honorable mention. He says, honorable mention, the Eye showed us the largest heist in Star Wars cinematic history. This not only helps fans understand how the rebellion got a chunk of funding, but continues the trend of how bank robberies always sell in cinematography.
Not wrong.
Yeah, so I thought that was a fun little comment over there. We don't get to see, I guess was the first heist that we ever saw in Star Wars. That was in Solo, right? The coaxium heist.
Mm-hmm.
So
there was like multiple heists. Yeah, there was like a double coaxium heist. You had the train heist on Vandor, and then on Kessel you had the bigger one.
The bigger one, yeah. So fun little call out there.
Yeah, it's not wrong though, because I mean, even in the Book of Boba Fett, that train heist was one of the more memorable visual scenes. So
yeah. So
We speak your name,
good.
High Ground Collectibles. It sounds
stuff.
like you're not in the filler crowd.
Lima 4 Photos says, I love the twist where Skeen turned out to be after the money more than Cassian was. This also led us to a great moment where Cassian showed that he is willing to do whatever it takes for the people he cares, or in this case, people he's grown to care about. Cassian always shoots first. I will say this, that I don't necessarily agree that Cassian was willing to do whatever it takes for the people that he cares about, especially if Lima is talking about like the Aldani crew.
I'm guessing it was just Vel. At that point, it would have just been Vel.
It would have just been Vel, or even himself, like, you know, like to a certain degree, like Cassian was more killing Skeen to protect himself than he was to protect everybody else.
Yeah,
I feel like
I don't even know if it was protecting. I think Cassian, he just likes taking out the trash.
He's like, fuck this
If he
guy.
finds a bad egg, he's gonna fucking shoot you in the head. Which is weird that he didn't blow away Cyril when he had him dead to rights. But hey, we got to have foils, correct? You got to have a foil, so that's why he got to live.
True. All right, next
so
up, Black
Lima,
Sun.
you're not technically correct. He does not always shoot first because he left Cyril alive.
Cyril's still alive, so that doesn't hold.
We still speak
Next
your name.
Black Sun Collectible says, when Luther goes into the back of his shop and starts laughing after finding out the heist was successful. Absolutely fantastic. Luther, new character. You may have missed him,
My boy,
but he
Luther.
was also in the back of the shop with Luthen. He was kind of off in the corner and having his own little laugh.
Luther, and then we also have Luthen Vandross. He is a lounge singer that sometimes will do stops at the cantina. Yep, exactly. Good old Luthen and Luther.
Good stuff there, Black Sun Collectibles. Thank you very much for your comment. Next up, your friend here.
This guy. You let this fucker make the cut?
Hey, I left him out last week because I saw that he was making some Jar Jar comments last week, but I was like, I'll toss him in there. He's EKU Rory, one of Matt's good friends. He says, should have been a Jar Jar constellation in the eye.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this guy may play with himself. 2 Jar Jar Binks pornos, you know what I mean?
He does seem to have a very a fetish almost for Jar Jar.
He is fixated on Lord Binks, who I honestly I don't know why. I think because during the prequel times we were in college and Jar Jar was the big bad, he was the black sheep of the prequels. I've never truly had an issue with Jar Jar. I mean, he was
me neither.
He was exactly who he was. I mean, there was some odd story choices with him, but he's Jar Jar. I ain't got a problem with the guy. In fact, I think I shared it today, and I actually remember who it was. Is this artist on Instagram, Manny Johnson 69. See, I have a penchant for memorizing useless information. But he put out a Warrior Jar Jar shot, and it was fucking kick ass. I completely bought into Jar Jar as a badass thanks to Manny's shot.
I mean, I would love to see a redemption arc for Jar Jar in some way, but it's already been canonized that he essentially turns into a street clown, and
he's
then
like a beggar on the side of a street. Yeah, he's just he's basically homeless. He busks. He's like a busker and probably sleeps in an alley. It's kind of sad. He got used and abused, the poor guy.
Unfortunately, there is no redemption for Jar Jar, but I would like to see some cool ass Gungans at one point, bring in a badass Gungan warrior. Other than
the best part is there's 2 likes on this comment.
There are 2 likes. 2 people went through
Jar Jar
and they're like, "Fuck yeah, man, Jar Jar constellation. That's what we needed."
That'd have been funny if they're like, "Ooh." Nemec's like, "Look, climb! Why? We have to see the Jar Jar constellation." He's like,
"We have to exit through the Gungan's mouth."
Yeah. Take a right at his ear. Oh man. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. EKU, you made it.
You made it.
You made the cut.
Hey, you roared.
Thanks. So, Nick said, I always love the question of the week. It's better when we get mumble mouth style questions because I love listening to Nick try to read bad grammar. It's one of the highlights of my week. So shame on all of you for using Grammarly or whatever you're doing these days on your comments to make them somewhat readable. I kind of miss that aspect of this segment where it's like, I be not liking them Star Wars and shit. It's like, okay, thank you for your comment. Yep. But I just like hearing Nick say that stuff. All right, man. Well, that leads us into the second phase of the fan segment, the big one here, the one that a lot of our diehards are tuning in for, and that is the top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week, which happens every Tuesday. But before that, every other day, I'm building up a portfolio of extremely awesome Star Wars art of any flavor, cosplays. You could be shooting your own fucking movie. It doesn't matter. If you've taken a dump that looks like Jabba the Hutt, we want to see it, and we may feature it. All you got to do is tag us using #tag Star Wars Time Show. Please. There's some of you, I see it out there. I know you want us to see your work, but we don't. Because you're either doing @Star Wars Time Show. That doesn't work. The hashtag, we want you to use it, but it's not always reliable. So don't do the ad tag and then add our account to that @Star Wars Time Show. So I'll feature those out throughout the week. Then Nick sits down on Monday and chooses his top 5, which we're about to discuss. And this top 5 covers October 10 to October 17. All right, Nick, take it away.
Yes, sir. And speaking of sir, the first person up in our top 5 this week is @SirDork730. Good. One of our goats. If you've been a longtime listener, Mount Rushmore goat. Lots of titles have been thrown towards Sir Dork's way, and he continues to put out bangers like this one. So what we see here is kind of a play on something that we saw in the first season of Mandalorian, where you would see, on Navarro, you would see the spikes with the stormtrooper helmets on them. But what Sir Dork has done here is he's got the spikes, he's got the helmets on them and stuff, but he's also got some street signs.
Yeah, it's a play on the sign. It's a play on this is the way. This
is the way.
But the way they're posed, right, Nick? That's what sells it.
There's so many different ways.
Yeah, you got one way going north. You got one way going west. You got this is the way going east. So Mando is looking down at Grogu, and they both have their arms up, well, what fucking way should we go? And that's the charm of this shot. And it's not your typical Sir Dork. There's no fucking fire. I don't see any gasoline. I don't see any dynamite. There's no nitroglycerin. It's just, he just did a nice simple particle bump, just probably got in there with his drain cleaner, air spray, knowing him, maybe a fucking straw in his mouth. But it's the subject, right? It's the signage and then the pose of Mando. And I like Grogu because he's looking at him like, why are you fucking asking me? You're the big one. Like you're the one that should know this shit. So it's just, as I said when we shared it, it's too clever @SirDork730. And while we're talking about the guy, since he always being one of the bigger accounts, he is definitely one of our biggest cheerleaders. So I just want to draw everyone's attention to his latest post, which we also featured, which is kicking off his theme for October. He does themes every month and hosts live streams and talks about the submissions. I like to think he borrowed the idea from us and just made it better and ran with it. But this month's theme, if you want to get involved, is Sir Dork's, what's the hashtag here? I don't want to screw it up, but it's with Funko Pops, which, that kind of goes back to my roots here. Here we go. So the theme this month for Sir Dork, if you're into his live streams and themes, you need to incorporate a Funko Pop into a toy photo. Post your photo on Instagram using hashtag SirDorkPops. And then also make sure to tag, just like I told you, tag SirDork730. And you get one sub per person. And Jared will literally go through the top 100 photos on a live stream, which is also going to be kind of doing a charity fundraiser for Pops for Patients. So because Jared's always trying to promote us, even though his legions of fans could give a rat's ass, I still want to do it in turn because, like I said, he's probably the biggest account that I feel like is a diehard Star Wars Time Show fan. That does mean something to me. So there you go. At SirDork730. Give him a follow. Great guy in person, online. If you're into this toy photography stuff, he's the dude to latch into in terms of a YouTube channel, because he's got all the content you need to start lighting shit on fire, trying to blow up your fingers, and making action figures look badass.
Right. He is the best. All right. Next up, at visual_approach_photo gives us this amazing, stormtroopers out in the field. So what we see is a squadron of stormtroopers that are all kind of flanking a tank. You see the tank trooper in there driving the tank, and then off in the background, you see the big ATST kind of making its way across the landscape as well. Awesome little mountain range in the background, nice foliage up in the front. It's like it's a shot that, one, I think is the first time that's been featured in a top 5 that actually uses the tank vehicle. And it prominently features 2 tank commanders. So I just thought that the whole composition of the shot was really awesome. And puts stormtroopers in a position to where we don't usually see them.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, Sean at Visual Approach Photo, another just fucking heavyweight in the toy photography wing of Instagram. If you haven't checked it out, one of my favorite follows, and it's a great. I believe this is all a small scale, like Star Wars 375. So your traditional, the vintage collection figures. But the way, Visual Approach layers his shot these days, and sometimes it's forced perspective, sometimes it's not. I don't really think he uses a lot of digi, so that very well could be a painting or a printout of that mountain range. But the other stuff is all practical, and it shows. It's a great shot, great Empire shot. And as I said, I like the sense of scale. Those mountains really help the foreground pop and make the scene feel like it. I mean, it almost feels like it's the field and sound of music. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what it reminds me of. So just more great work from at visual_approach_photo. In fact, that's where I saw the Dave Filoni meme. So I don't know if Visual is down with that, or if he just thought it was funny or ironic like I do and shared it, but hopefully he's not in the camp of now Dave Filoni's no good because he gives you too much fan service. Yeah.
I like how the sentiment has changed on fan service so quickly. Anyway, but Visual Approach Photo, always a pleasure to see his work. Make sure to give them a follow. Next up, at collector_of_beautiful_things. Collector of beautiful things. And what we see here is a marching order of Mandalorians as they make their way. It almost looks like through Andor, but that's just because it's a very mossy and dense forest.
It's just a great outdoor location. I mean, wherever Collector was at, I mean, this is a kick-ass little chunk of woods.
Yeah. So what we see here is you can see in the first position, I think is that just like straight up like blue Boba Fett?
No, that's a Death Watch member. So
Death Watch member, Blue Buffett. If you remember from back in the day, I dubbed them Blue Buffett when they were released. You can see, I believe you can see right behind him is Bo-Katan, and then off kind of to the left of Bo is Casca. And then all the way in the back, you see Paz Vizsla, you see Heavy Mando, and then I think maybe that might be Axe Woes, way in the back.
It does look like the Axe figure, but I didn't even think the Axe was out yet, so Collector might have got him from overseas. But yeah, it's the Mandos in blue, or technically, I think we can assume that maybe Costco at one point was also Death Watch. Paz very well could have been. I mean, he likes the blue. He is a fucking Vizsla. One of his ancestors created Death Watch along with Bo. To me, Nick, this shot, it's the outdoor setting, the natural light, the bokeh pop. I mean, some fantastic bokeh in this shot because of those trees and the light coming through there. You're getting all those little bokeh circles. I love outdoor Star Wars toy photography. That's kind of where I got into it and would like to get back to. I can't get there. I don't know what it is. It's a mental malfunction at this point. I have a lot of toys to shoot, and it's not that I don't want to, but anytime I have a chance to shoot them, my brain's going, nah, you'd rather do something else, like play a video game or sit around, shit like that. So yeah, I'll get there, hopefully.
There's more important priorities, right?
Otherwise, I am completely going to run out of room because the way I work, it's like if I get something, it needs to be shot before it goes away. Nothing's been shot for like 6 months, so it's all building up around me. I mean,
so yeah, eventually you will see a pile of toys up to Matt's neck as we're podcasting, and it's because that he's run out of physical space to keep them.
Like if you're on the live stream, if you're looking to my left now, where you can see a lot of my shit, there are 11 individual Hot Toys standing up there right now. 11 Hot Toys. Standing up that I've received probably over the last three or 4 months. So I got to get there. Although I sold the intern on the Vader Black Series helmet last week. He was really interested in that. These helmets are great. And I know. I mean, I think there's something
when
I
saw your video,
they're kind of like more your style of collectible. You know what I mean?
Prop collecting type of thing.
Yeah, but also looks cool in a room. I mean, these honestly, if I had more room, last week during whatever fuck Prime Day that was, I probably would have bought 4 or 5 more helmets because they're all half price. I mean, they were selling these helmets for like $50. The Mando helmet was like $60, and the only reason I bought it and then I canceled it because I was going, dude, where are you gonna fucking put it?
It's like yeah, where's it gonna go? I'm glad that I stayed away from the Prime Day sale. Honestly, like I only got a few things.
I got the memory card you shot me, and how about dude?
Yes.
Did you have a fucking hell of a time trying to jam that little fucker into the Steam Deck?
I will say that the first time I tried to put it in, it like shot right back out because I didn't click it in. Like I didn't push hard enough to click it. So it was a little bit trickier, but I eventually got it in there. And
dude, I'm telling you, at one point, man, I almost like I was approaching, I call it like to my family, I just describe it as it's a brain melt. I could be laughing one moment, but if I try a simple task and it doesn't go the way I think it should, my brain just goes like that. And I'm not kidding, dude. I was either going to take the fucking memory stick and just jam it in with a fucking screwdriver, like, now you're going in, you little fucking bitch. Now you're in there, which would have exploded the entire Steam Deck. Or I was just going to throw it away. Like literally just take the memory card and be like, hey, fuck you. I don't need this stress. See you later. Here's $50, $60 in the trash. But luckily I took a few deep breaths and it finally snapped in. But man, I'm telling you, I almost called you. I was almost like, am I fucking stupid or what? Like, why is this thing not sliding into the chamber and actually staying down in there? But I figured it out. Nothing died.
Got it in there.
Nothing died.
I got one of those, and then Taylor picked up some household stuff. So that's all. It was
weird. Like the helmets were on a fire sale last week, also at Best Buy. So I held strong though. Ordered the Mando, but canceled it subsequently after I realized, like, dude, you got 11 Hot Toys, an Egg Attack, the Boba helmet, fucking GTP space walls. There's no room. You can't even put them on top of your glass shelves because you've got a Razor Crest up there. You got a Thanos up there. You got a Snow Speeder. You got a regular speeder. You got Luke's Land Speeder. There is no fucking room for helmets. Stop. So,
all right.
I did it.
Good stuff. Held back. But, all right. Next up in the top 5, because we're still on the top 5, people, is a shot from @average.guy.collects. And when I saw this shot at first, I was like, oh man, this looks like a Ches shot because Ches loves to shoot outside. He usually doesn't have grass, but it looks very similar to what he shoots. So what we see here is Mando outside of the Razor Crest that has landed on this nice little golden field. And then next to him is little Grogu in his bassinet. And it's just a nice little Grogu Mando shot as they step out of the Razor Crest on a nice serene little open field. And I just think that it's very crisp shot. It captures the Razor Crest in all of its former glory. And I think that Average Guy did a great job of getting some good lighting and good composure.
No, yeah, I'm with you, man. It's one of those shots that really sells why all of you probably feel like assholes for not buying the Razor Crest. It may very well be the last HasLab project for Star Wars that ever gets funded, but it was well worth it. I mean, it is. I'm not a huge 375 person, even though that's how I started. Really, my whole life I was 375 until I saw Black Series photography, and then obviously now I've moved all the way up to the luxury lines. But it's such a great collectible piece. This Razor Crest is a thing of beauty, and Average Guy Collects nails it. You don't need to do much to sell this thing as a wonderful piece of memorabilia, I'll even say, from the first season and a half of The Mandalorian. It's great. And really, Nick, I think the thing that sells it as, hey, that's the Razor Crest, it's that light reflection there up on the canopy. I don't know why.
That's what I was going to say.
Like
right up towards the front.
Like just leads your eye into the subject, and then you just kind of follow it through, and you're like, yeah, that's just a great static shot of the crest and its owner and his companion. Yeah, no, very well executed shot, and it really does kind of highlight it. He does a great job of highlighting the features of the Razor Crest, even though it's kind of a pulled out shot. So. Good stuff there at Average Guy Collects on Instagram. And the last one this week, Matt, you knew I was going to put it in there as soon as you featured it. Listen, I always think Star Wars can beat any other franchise, but when I saw a shot with Vader and Sauron in it, I was like, I need to do this for Nick. So,
and dude, this thing's got 1,600, almost 1,700 likes.
It popped for sure.
It popped.
So, hey, first off, thank you from the Outer Rim. Like, listen, we're not idiots. We understand by featuring, we get it. We get some benefit from it too. But thank you from the Outer Rim for coming up with a creative crossover here by pitting the Dark Lord of the Sith versus literally the Dark Lord himself.
The Dark Lord of the Rings, and I mean. You could probably give more insight into these figures, but I mean, so what we see here is essentially the back of Vader, his lightsaber out and ignited, and then we see Sauron in all of his glory from the second age Sauron, the one that we will eventually see at the end of Rings of Power, standing. And what's fun is they're in a fiery lava-ridden type of environment. Could be Mustafar, could be Mordor. It almost looks like in the background, kind of looks a little bit more like
it's more Mordor. But listen, hey, and that's why I think these two together work in this scene. Is Vader also enjoyed the Shadowlands, right? I mean, Mustafar looks just like fucking Mordor, if you think about it. It's got the red skies, the sun's blotted out on one side of the planet, so I dig it. And I've always liked this style of Sauron. I think this is the Weta Workshop, the Peter Jackson Sauron. I believe it's the model from his movies, which they kind of honored in Rings of Power with their depiction of Sauron. They still gave him that big tall crown and that foreboding looking armor. While we're looking at this, who wins then, Vader or Sauron?
I do think so here's one thing that I would say, Sauron, we know he has magical powers. We've never really seen him put them to use, for lack of a better word. In obviously in Lord of the Rings, he's just an eye, so he doesn't have a physical body.
You're right, but at the the opening sequence where you actually see the battle, you notice when he grows to gigantic size.
I think Vader beats him. I'm just gonna I'll put it out there. I think Vader beats him.
I mean, I'm the one that said Vader always wins, but if you really want to get dorky, Vader is still he's a human being.
He is.
Sauron is literally a demigod. He's a spirit by nature that inhabits. He can take other forms. He's literally a magical being himself. I mean,
we've seen him if all it takes is to cut the ring off the finger. We saw
he loses
Numenorian,
but he doesn't die. He doesn't die. He can't take physical form. Listen, this is a fun one. You could sit around all day with all your dorky, nerdy friends, and everyone's going to have a different outcome. But it would be an evenly matched thing. But yeah, if Vader could get a hold of a ring, it would be over.
It'd be over.
Because he wouldn't need to put it on. He already has power and influence. He'd throw it right into the fucking fire and walk away.
Yeah. So I will say that I think Vader takes it, but I think it would be like if Sauron can get a hold of him, then it's a different story, because that is one thing that I think that Vader could do a good job at, is like keeping distance, using the Force to kind of like keep himself on the outside, so you don't necessarily have to get like right within mace swinging range like we saw at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, where he's like taking out 15 people at a time with his mace. You know, I think if Vader can get that angle, then he's got a better shot where he can stay on the outside and stuff. But it would be, man, that's one of those like clash of worlds that I would love to see play out.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I like this discussion, because you're thinking like, what could he do to Vader with the ring on? Because I don't think he could mentally influence him. Because he couldn't even mentally influence elves. I mean, even with the One Ring, he couldn't control elves. He could only really control humans.
Yeah.
So yeah, what would he do to Vader with the ring on? Would he try to lift him up? Would he try to rip him apart? I mean, you would think Vader's force could counter most of those attacks.
Yeah. And you can imagine like what Palpatine has put Vader through can't be much worse than what Sauron.
Oh yeah,
do,
yeah.
Right?
I mean, Palpatine he's a more evil person than even Sauron. Sauron, he just wanted to do his thing. He wanted to like have people follow his favorite boss.
Like, look, man, I just want to have dominion over all of Middle Earth.
Right, yeah, you guys can have the fucking island. You can have Valinor. Just let me hang out with these slobs, these human slobs and dwarves on Middle Earth, and we'll fuck it all up. But that's it. Like we don't want anything more than that.
That's right. So, fun shot there from the Outer Rim. Beautiful crossover of two of our favorite franchises here on the Star Wars Time Show. I almost feel like he did this just for us.
Yeah, why not? I mean, honestly, I want this fucking Sauron figure the more I look at it. I could use myself a 1/6 scale Sauron, I think.
But that's it. That's the end of the top 5.
All right.
That's the end of the show. So, Matt, bring us home.
You got it, buddy. Sorry, my neighbor is literally blowing me up about he's going through the final 2 episodes of Rings of Power.
Okay.
And I'm like, he's like, whoa. I was like, dude, just save it. Watch the finale. It's coming. Everything you're sitting here getting worked up about, you're gonna get clarity. And his last update was, I don't believe the beginning. I still have my thoughts on who Sauron is. I'm like, like I said, just fucking be patient.
Wait.
Just be patient. All right, but Nick's right. SWTS E235 has come to a close. Hey, it looks like we had someone new join us here. I've never seen this person in the stream before. Welcome, Linda Matsumoto. We speak your name. Thanks for joining the stream. Bring some friends next time. We always like to see new members of the fandom. Hopefully we didn't scare you away. But this sadly brings us to the end of this episode, but fear not. We don't go anywhere. Tomorrow's Wednesday. It is a new day for some Star Wars time, and you'll be getting that with my breakdowns of Andor Episode 7, so make sure you are subbed to youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show and turn on those notifications, because you'll at least be getting an Easter egg breakdown and a review of Episode 7 tomorrow before Nick and I come back next week on Tuesday and have our big-time powwow breakdown right here on the live stream version of the show. So go on StarWarsTime.net. Hit it up. Don't be scared. It's not going to hurt you. Even though last Wednesday I wanted to light it on fire, it figured itself out, and it's still there. And it is our home on the net. So you can find all of our podcast links if you need to subscribe to the podcast. The podcast is just an audio-only version of the live stream, but I know there are some fans that like to listen in cars and whatnot. So those always drop Wednesday. But the best place to get linked up and linked in and connected is StarWarsTime.net. Hit the subs, hit the YouTube, and as always, we don't want to ask for any money. I got IG now bothering me. Hey, you've been selected. You can use this subscription now. It's like, I'm sure other people will use it. I still, and this could just be me being old, I I have a hard time charging for anything if we don't have thousands of motherfuckers coming here to listen to the gospel at the feet of the Star Wars Time Show. So we remain free. We just ask you to please hit comments on videos, hit comments on those IG posts. When we share the podcast on Wednesday, comment the fuck out of it, like it, share it, save it, juice the algo. We need people to know we're more than just featurers of kick-ass content that other people create. We do create our own too. All right? There's always time for Star Wars time, people. Get up, get excited, get out there, and get us some new acolytes. Linda, thank you. Oh, Jared brought Linda. So, like I said, Jared earned his keep. He is not going to get charged for this episode. All right, Jared, will refund your money once I hit end. But in all seriousness, my friends, I love talking Star Wars with my man Nick and knowing people are listening and interacting on the live stream. So join in. We do try to have some fun, and I do think we're a little bit different than what you get out there with the other Star Wars fan podcasts, the big ones, where to me it just sounds like everything's happy and you're not, where else would you get a talk on masturbation and going to hell on a Star Wars podcast? That's who we are. That is the Star Wars Time Show. So like we always say, if you listen to it, the Force will be with you always. Hey, bonus show, Joe's right. Save whatever clip he's talking about. You can now clip our show from your YouTube app. Just pull up the stream, hit clip, grab what you want to share it away. That is great stuff too. Yo, Joe, you got to get tough. All right, for real, we're out now. Peace.